Welcome to the show, guys. Welcome to Gray Area episode 47. I'm Rex Jones. My co host, Tim Tompkins, will be joining me shortly. We've got a really exciting interview for you guys today at 4:30 Central Time. Simon Dixon will be joining us to talk all things Bitcoin, precious metals, geopolitics, global economy, how it all factors and fits in together. I actually just saw that he released an interview with Suleiman, friend of the show. So he's been very active as of late. We're very interested and excited to hear what he has to say and to ask him very important questions that'll benefit our audience. So I know we've done a lot of topical political stuff recently, and that's fun and that's important and that's cool. We like talking to different pundits and different people with political opinions. It's going to be very cool to talk to people that can actually provide us material insight into how the world really functions in these really big global systems like finance, like money, like Bitcoin, crypto, precious metals, fiat currency, whatever you want to say. But before my co host gets here, and maybe a little bit into when he gets here, I had a couple, yeah, kind of legitimate stories I wanted to go over and have fun with you guys looking at. So I've been attacking a few people on X. Attack is a strong word, maybe like prod or poke, but I've been, talking about Bongino and talking about Tim Pool and talking about Megyn Kelly. So I wanted to go ahead and get into that with y'all now. Can we go ahead and pull up that first Bongino tweet? It's my reaction to it. Awesome. So I gotta thank you. So Dan Bongino comes out here and he's doing all this fear mongering stuff about, they got the networks to steal the kids and take the kids and get the kids to hurt themselves online and this, that, and the other thing. And like, that's serious. That's legitimate. That's real. I'm not denying that that exists, but it's kind of hilarious to hear from the guy that actually had the power to arrest the people and to quote unquote do the job and to quote unquote save the children. Now he's back in media telling the media people that their opinion is worthless because of their media. And my analogy for it was the idea of Bongino doing a show is a lot like if a firefighter burned down a bunch of houses he was supposed to save and then went on a fire prevention tour. Like that's as simple as I can put it. This guy comes out here, he counter signals to us. He sheepdogs us back into supporting the administration. And the logic for it is literally, I'm a tough guy and I was in the thing and I was in the administration. I know things that you don't know. And then in the interview, which we may react to in full later, or just the show that he does. In his show, he goes on and say, like, there are things I can't talk about. There are things I can't say. Okay, well, why are you doing the media job then? Like, it makes absolutely zero sense for you to be in a profession where you can't even talk. But that's okay. That's Mr. Bongino. Let's go ahead and go to Dan Bongino addresses the haters, and we'll go ahead and play that clip. I mean, and it really, it looks like he's on meth or something. And I'm not saying he is. Of course, I'm not making that claim about anybody. He looks really bad. And anyone that can't see it, it's kind of more a metaphysical thing than anything. Let's play the clip.
The greatest sound in the world right now, the Dan Bongino Show bell. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so fucking back, man. We are back. We are so back. To all the haters.
I mean, come on, man. Like we're about 10 seconds in. We're so back. Come on, it's New York. I'm walking here. I'm walking down the street. Who is this for? Who is this for? It makes you realize about the country, like the general intelligence of people, especially the older people, because I guarantee it's all like over 55 plus that are watching his show. He has a tough guy image, like Luca Brasi in The Godfather or something, right? Like he's an actor or a media professional that had a past career in something that gives him legitimacy. Like Luca Brasi, he was a member of the actual mob, the guy that played that guy in The Godfather. So Dan Bongino, being a member of the deep state mob, is now coming back into a media role to lend it legitimacy somehow. And the way he gets people hyped is he goes, we're so fucking back. I can say the F word because I'm a real American. We go ahead and play it.
To all the liberals, to all the progressives, to all the commies, to all the people who called us fascists and Nazis and racists and deplorables and garbage bags and smellies and rednecks and hayseeds and flyover countries. Fuck you, motherfuckers.
What is a smelly? Has anyone ever heard of a smelly before? Maybe that's just Dan. Maybe Dan just smells bad. A smelly, but he lists all the buzzwords to get the boomer, to get the neocon, or just generally the uninformed conservative mad. The commies, the liberals, the socialists, all these people, they're the problem. They're bad. And notice how he wants you to exist in that left-right dichotomy, right? Because he's on one side of the football team, and then these other people are on the other side of the football team. And Dan Bongino's your favorite player. Dan Bongino, when he throws the ball down to the 40-yard line and scores the touchdown, he's so incredible. He's my favorite guy on the team. There is no team. And I hear people like Tim Pool say this. I hear people like my dad say this. Where is this team? Is this the same team that's always looking into things? It's always, it's being looked into. They're looking into that. They're examining it. More stuff is going to come out. Trust us. That's another really good one that they like to throw out there. And it's just like, who are you people? Because it's one thing to be an establishment Democrat or Republican politician, and you're someone that just goes along to get along. You're part of the political machine. You're part of the establishment. These people ran on being counterculture. These people ran on being legitimately like pro-America, pro-freedom people. That was the platform they ran on. And they said they were going to destroy the system. But now apparently the system is so holy and sacrosanct that it can never be questioned now that they've worked in it. They've somehow purified the whole thing, and they're always looking into that. Notice how they're always doing that. Let's play more of Mr. Bongino. Oh, I'm walking in, Mr. Bongino. Do we have more of him, or was that? Oh, okay, good.
And I don't give a shit what you think about it. I'm sorry. I know shouting fraud is bad, but I don't give a shit. I'm going to tell you something. You motherfuckers brought this on yourselves. It didn't happen.
Look at the eyes. I'm pretty scary looking myself, but I mean, he didn't used to look like this, guys. Thank you. Tim's in the studio now. He's about to join me. And when Tim sees this, I want you to see this, Tim. It's good we got a little time before the guest. This, like, if you haven't seen Bongino back yet, it's fucking crazy, dude. It's wild. Go ahead now. We got the good shot. We can go back to the video.
To be this way. We could have had a nice country where Democrats and Republicans love the country. We agree that the country's wonderful. We agree we got to defend it. And maybe the Democrats think, oh, okay, we should maybe hike a few more taxes and do this. And maybe that's not what happened. We now have one party that's like, you people are garbage, you're scum, you're serial Nazi murderers, you're savage animal garbage bag people, you all suck. And you know what happened? The garbage people, deplorable, hayseed, redneck, fascist, Nazi, whatever you called us, you know what I call those people? I call them patriots and heroes. They collectively gave the biggest double-barreled middle finger ever to the establishment swamp class trying to lord over us and said, we're not kneeling today. You're the one now. You're the one who's going to have to look in the mirror and say, man, we really fucked up. And yes, you did, because we are so back.
All right, you caught the tail end of that about being back. I want to go back to the beginning a little bit.
I didn't see the video.
All right, well, we got to show Tim the video. Let's play it from the beginning. It's just too good, and our audience will enjoy it anyway.
Show is super early.
The greatest sound in the world right now, the Dan Bongino Show bell. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so fucking back, man. We are back. We are so back. To all the haters, to all the liberals, to all the progressives, to all the commies, to all the people who called us fascists and Nazis and racists and deplorables and garbage bags and smellies and rednecks and hayseeds and flyover countries. Fuck you motherfuckers tonight. And I...
All right, yeah, that's enough. We just want to get Tim a little context.
He's well spoken, I'll tell you that.
I don't even know about that, dude. Like, that's just like, and you want to hear about the slop and the Democrat law. Like, this is the thing we hear from everybody, right? Like, he's talking like a politician now. That's his job.
Right.
But let's go to the Trump interview with Bongino. Let's get that. We get the, you're so incredible. It's why, I had to make you leave your job.
Appreciate it.
Well,
Give me 1 second. I'm still setting up some stuff, guys. Don't mind me.
In my lifetime, and frankly, probably any other lifetime either. President Donald J. Trump. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Dan, and you too. I was very unhappy when you left the FBI, but I was very happy that you have your show, which does so good. So I'm okay with this. It's net neutral. I call it a net neutral.
Well, Mr. President, I want to thank you for the opportunity. The past year has been absolutely incredible. And given that, you're a results guy, obviously we were friends before, but working for you is a completely different experience. You are a results guy. You're a spreadsheets guy. How would you get to a net present value positive with what you're doing? And I'll never forget an Oval Office meeting we had in light of the D.C. crime numbers today. Hadn't had a homicide in a record amount of time in D.C. thanks to your leadership. We're sitting in the Oval Office, and I was talking to you about the homicide rate plunging, and it was only about 3 months into my term there. I said, Mr. President, what we're doing down in Memphis and elsewhere is working. And I'll never forget, I said, we're doing the broken windows, Rudy Giuliani style policing. You looked at me and you said, hey, how do we take this nationwide? And you never, ever let go. You stayed on top of it with me and Cash. You were all over it. You're such a hands-on guy. And it was just so refreshing to work for someone who doesn't get into all the hype and all the nonsense, but cares about.
So none of this shit matters at all. None of this shit matters. Oh, I was a cop, and we thought about no homicide is good. DC's a better place now that you're in charge, Mr. President. It's like, what about the human trafficking? What about the tens or hundreds of thousands of children that have been smuggled? What about Epstein Island? What about the Epstein files? What about all the redacted names? All the things that are blacked out where it's talking about torture videos and bringing babies to each other and all the craziness. But it's like, oh no, like it was incredible. We haven't had a murder in Washington, D.C. And it's because of your incredible leadership, Mr. President. And it's like they're like barbecuing babies.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
yeah.
And it's like, my job is to get in there and to see the bad stuff you don't want to deal with because you're just people throwing popcorn into the arena. There's a phenomenal clip, and I didn't include it in the show folder for today, but it's of Bongino, and it's him addressing like the haters, the black pillars or whatever. And he's like, you guys throwing popcorn, and there are two guys in the ring sparring and going at it. It's like, yeah, they're sparring. They're fake fighting each other. Right. Yeah. And like the truth is right there in his statement.
It is
like, it's not a real fight. They're sparring each other. It's a choreographed show. It's all WWE at the end of the day.
Right.
And his argument, Tim, what he likes to say on the show now, or what he's begun to say on the show, is that people in media don't have the right to the people that really do the hard work out there. You don't have the right to criticize them. And it's like, so if you hire someone to do a job, which is essentially what we're doing by getting these people appointed to a job because someone that we voted for puts them in that position, like what happened with Trump and Dan Bongino, and they don't do the job, you're not allowed to criticize them because you yourself are not actively doing the work. You see how that's See how that's like a broken circle?
Don't you think that they slightly not martyred him, but they scapegoated him? Because I feel like I feel like he was just put from pressure from high down.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I don't see how he's the main guy that's orchestrating everything behind the scenes. He's just a puppet. Like
I 100% agree. But ultimately, like you have a choice, right? And it's like he had the opportunity somewhere along the way. I genuinely believe this. He had the opportunity to like get his hands on some really devastating information, and when that happened, he got threatened, and he was like, "I'm not going to do it."
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Most people, including myself, would probably cave with the amount of stuff that they would promise to do to you.
Is that not the ultimate proof, though? Like, when that happens to you, you're like, okay, well, like, I'm going to expose the whole thing and die and be the hero of America?
Yeah, you can say that if you don't have anything attached. Remember, we said this one time in a conversation. It was like,
it's a good
if you don't have family, you don't have friends, anyone, nothing to lose, then it's fine. But like, often these people have an entire ship of people that rely on them.
Right. And that's why they go after people with like a solid background on paper, quote unquote, because you have assets to threaten.
Yeah. Like right now, like technically, I wouldn't. Fuentes is not the best example, but like, let's say like Fuentes, I see as a guy who's on the fringe, who's like, I don't give a fuck. But like Fuentes still has people that he cares about. And like, I think, anyone, including him, could get pressured. Maybe you have to take the guy who has zero family, zero friends, doesn't care about anything. And then maybe, but I still think that guy ends up like disappearing into oblivion at some point. And they have infinite amount of ways to make sure that happens.
It's interesting. Like someone like Fuentes, like his absence would be noted, right? So like that's why ultimately you do get to a point where it's almost like you become too big to fail, right? Because just so many people know who you are.
I agree with you.
It becomes like a weird anomaly, but I definitely do take your point. Let's watch more of Dan Bongino.
It's probably your business background or what it is, but amazing job on that.
Well, we have the best crime numbers we've ever had. We have the lowest number of crimes in 125 years since they recorded. That's in 1900. You're to think of it, 125 years. That's despite a lot of bad people coming in through the border that shouldn't be here, and we're getting them out. You got a lot of them out yourself. We're doing much better than anybody would think, and yet we have our lowest. Think of it. A lot of criminals came into our country. We're getting them out, and we're getting them out fast. We have to fight liberal judges and fake governors, terrible governors and mayors, guys like, just take a look at Minnesota. Walsey's a disaster. But if you think.
So I would be very interested. I don't know how many episodes it's going to take. I bet money he hasn't done it. I bet a lot of money he hasn't done it, actually. How many episodes of the Dan Bongino show will there be before he talks about the Epstein files?
I don't think he ever talks about it.
Yeah, you don't think he ever addresses it?
No.
That's an interesting line.
If he does address it, it's gonna be sugar coated very heavily.
And I saw Kurt Metzger make this point as of like, this is the real test for society. Like, if we accept this and accept that, like, it is what it is, we're never really gonna know. That's when like the next stage of things begin. And I would agree with that, because ultimately, if we can have the same people in government like a decade from now, roughly the same people in government, the ones that are still youngish and alive, but we're also implicated in these things. If they're still around, like this, it's over, right? And that's why I think it's so important, Tim, to hammer the Epstein issue. Is like, this is not okay. It's not okay to be the deputy FBI director, to leave because you can't do the job, and then to not only not say like I had to leave because I couldn't do the job, to say I did a phenomenal job. The job was great. The people in the administration are doing an incredible job. Fuck you if you criticize us.
Yeah, but like I would say, I don't think he wanted to leave though. That's really where my mind. That's where my mind goes. Like when somebody's in such a position. Well, maybe at a certain point when it got bad enough, maybe he's like, all right, fine, I just have to give it up.
Right.
But I really feel like he had an infinite amount of pressure put on him, not even just by his boss, but Trump directly.
Oh,
because if you just think about it, like even Cash was getting squeezed, but like
Cash played it better.
Cash did play it better.
He played it way better.
But like Cash is also. We can't even talk about intelligence, but like Cash is just a little bit more political.
I think Cash is smarter than Bongino. I would agree with you there. I think he's more shrewd, I guess would be the better word, and he's more aware of his position. Ultimately, Dan Bongino is someone, although they talk about his flaws or whatever, criticize him on the show, I don't think Dan Bongino is someone that's willing to throw people under a bus.
No.
See what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
So like, if they're like, oh, we can pin this on XYZ, you don't have to leave your job. He's like, I just kind of want to go. I think, but that's also pressure. That's not him wanting to leave.
Yeah,
of course.
I think if this all never happened, if it wasn't a whole big mess,
right, and
you didn't have so much public opinion,
right,
he'd still be in his position. Like, yeah, I think the Epstein was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was pretty much the entirety of his career of what caused the downfall.
Well, it's so crazy because it's literally like telling someone when you're like 14, like, I'm going to go to the moon and be an astronaut. And they're like, no, you're not. You're not going to go to the moon and be an astronaut. And then like, he has a career in the Secret Service. He has a career in like private contracting. He protected Obama. And then he goes on the political circuit for like a decade plus and starts a media career, and he literally gets the job. And that's what's so crazy about the whole Trump administration, is because like, if you just went off a universe where Donald Trump did the stuff that he promised to do, we'd all love him. Right. But then it's the total inverse of that.
Well, and I think he shot himself in the foot, right? Because
100%.
He said all of those things on air, just like we talk and we get into the flow state and yap, and you see the interviews he did, and it's like people don't forget, and the internet doesn't forget. I mean, you have receipts, so everybody's pulling up his old videos of everything he said prior to him getting in office about the Epstein files and what they're gonna do. And I really believe there's something here, but like, did he really think at that time he was going to be in this position?
No.
Right.
No.
So like, he was speaking as a regular guy, just like me and you, and then he's paid for it now once he's gotten in, and he wasn't prepared.
It's very interesting. It's a very curious case, and that's why I like to discuss Bongino. There's a lot of angles to it, but ultimately it represents the cream of the crop slop, even more than like someone like Jesse Waters, like doing war promo for the Venezuela invasion, like we talked about. This is true like manufacturing consent with people. Like you can still trust the system. The system is good. The system is safe. See, the guy you liked who was in the system, he left the system just so he could come back to you. See how loyal he is?
Yeah.
It's like he's your buddy. He's your friend.
Yeah, but he needed the money.
Right.
To be honest. He's got to capitalize because no one else is hiring him for anything else anytime soon.
The thing is he's getting like 5,000 views on these videos, right? He's doing horrible.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's bad.
I would have thought he's. I've been seeing him on like the front page of Rumble sometimes.
Well, they're pushing him, dude. They're pushing on YouTube. At least I watched one of the videos. It was like 5.9K, and that was like this morning.
Live or
no after, or like after? The day after being live, and like there's not a market for this stuff like at all. No one is interested in watching the Dan Bongino show in the same way that like who actually watches Fox News, right? Or CNN? Old people. Yeah, that's my point. It's all like there's no one under the age of 40 that's watching these.
Yeah,
these
not
people.
Consistently anyway.
Ever.
Yeah,
unless they see a clip of them on Instagram Reels.
Yeah, you're right. I most of the stuff I see for those mainstream, I'm not like sitting at my TV watching it like a whole episode through. It's always just a clip.
But Trump comes on and he's like, everything is the most incredible. It's the most amazing thing. Before, I was mad when you left and I didn't want you to leave. I wanted you to stay so I could grape you more. But you ran away from me. You ran that tight little butt away from me. You took it out of DC and you're doing a podcast now so I can still see you on the video. I mean, I just like to have your career destroyed in this way by the person that you work for, and then have the person that you used to work for, or still work for, he still works for Trump, come on your show. It's just a humiliation ritual to me.
And it could be, they're like, we got to do damage control, right? And it was not necessarily like, okay, well, you're the one who's like getting destroyed by this, but we have to do something about it. The public's not going to be happy if we don't do anything.
Accept it.
Right. Yeah. So maybe I think they made a backdoor deal. Honestly, that's the most plausible sense for him to even be still talking to Trump. He still wants to be around power, right? I don't think it's going to be like one of those situations where he's like, damn, I'm done.
I know. I think he's totally controlled. Like I guarantee his producer, I guarantee his whole like media system, whatever sponsors he has, he's got like the most generic sponsor, like Patriot Mobile.
Yeah. 100%.
And stuff like that.
People are asking about, why we're live this early. Not ideal, but our guest Simon, he's not based in the US. He's based in the UK. So the hour, the time difference is pretty wild. I think it's like 8 hours.
This is gonna be a fun interview show.
Yeah, 100%.
Fun interview show.
And people will have to catch the replay and I'm not expecting there to be like a massive audience compared to what we did because other people are live right now, Harrison included.
Right, and other people are working too.
Yeah, and other people are working as well. But still, nonetheless, people who are here are gonna get some value out of what he has to say. I was very excited for this one.
Yeah,
he's super smart.
Right.
Like, I'm on Suleiman Spaces, just like listening to him, and he's just like he's got a wealth of knowledge. And we have various guests on here, but like he's the first guest I would say that like is like. He's deep into the financial.
Well, he's a non-political pundit. He's an actual expert in a financial field. And that's what I said when we initially went live today. I said is like today is going to be our first really big interview with someone that's not necessarily like a political pundit.
Yeah. So he's big in crypto, big in finance. I mean, his company's raised like $2.5 billion in investments. Like he's a big deal, and I'm just grateful that he's going to take the time to even come on the show today. But
will you pull the intro sheet up so I can be ready for it?
Yeah, I got you.
My bad.
But yeah,
so he's a philanthropist as well. Kind of.
Yeah, philanthropist, but I would more call him an investor and like angel investor at the same time.
Right.
Like he just has a lot of things. He's been around, dude. He's one of the first guys that's like that knew Bitcoin was going to be Bitcoin before everybody rode the wave. Like people would have probably called him crazy back when he started. And you're going to hear all the things that he's going to talk about his experience. And, if there's any questions that you guys have, put them in the chat now. I'll try to remember. I know Nimrod said something about a question about silver. I am going to ask him about silver. That is on my list. But really today is about learning about like the real truth behind the financial systems more than what we just report on, you know, because not everybody's going to be as well versed as Simon here. So
yeah, Max Kaiser in the early 2000s or mid 2000s tried to give my dad the equivalent of like $660 million in Bitcoin.
No way.
And my dad was drunk and eating pizza in Germany and wasn't interested. Talk about a fumble. Am I right? We need the soundboard working so I can go.
I got you. But you know, it's like that's like the equivalent. It's not as bad as, remember that guy who had his like local Bitcoin wallet or something, and he lost it, and it was like worth billions of Bitcoin, and he spent years, quite literally years, digging in like landfills, just searching for these like physical like hard drives, which would have had his wallet, which had like billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin.
Hey, I'm sorry, buddy. It's over. Put some seasoning on it. You're cooked.
There we go. We got the soundboard up.
Yeah, that's depressing.
He talked about Epstein and Bitcoin. I don't want to like go so far into that stuff. Like today is like, I want to learn something, not get into the Epstein slop, but
for sure. I think his
position, he made his position clear. He said there is plausible case for Epstein creating
Epstein
Bitcoin.
Is Satoshi.
Yeah, but like, you know, sometimes you know, these things, there's no like, it's hearsay, you know,
right?
Like he doesn't, I don't think when I talked to him and he said in the space, he didn't seem like he had concrete. It was just a belief around that. But you know, maybe I'll ask him that later, but after we get through like the bulk of the questions.
Yeah, and we really do appreciate all of y'all for being here. I was about to say tonight, but this afternoon.
This afternoon, dude, it's early.
Yeah, depending on where you're at. And we know that we got people here that are really core listeners, people also checking out the show for the first time.
Yeah, go ahead and repost, guys.
Yeah, that would be helpful. That would be a big deal.
Because we want this to, at least, I know sometimes, dude, I swear there's a lot of people that have told us that they're not getting notifications when we go live, and that's just an algorithm thing.
It's too cool. Yeah.
But like, honestly, when you guys repost and you're commenting in the chat section, it helps the algorithm recognize that we're live and get those notifications to people who haven't gotten them yet. So we really appreciate you guys for doing that.
Yes, and like I said, like we say, like we appreciate every single one of you that are here. We do a show Thursday and Sunday. I do a daily show as well, though I've taken a break from that to recalibrate. I'm going to start up again very soon, probably tomorrow or the next day. That'll be announced on my Twitter. If you're not following Gray Area Talks on Twitter, highly recommend you do that. Same with Truism Tim's account. Go follow that. And make sure to go subscribe to the YouTube or Rumble channel if you haven't already. That's a big deal. That really helps us out. We're very close to 1,000.
Yeah, and remind all the people, Mosh says, remind all the people of YouTube to click the bell and then press all.
Oh yeah, we don't do the right stuff, Tim. We don't go like click the bell. Like we gotta do more.
Somebody was asking last time why. Oh, you got okay, good job, Nimrod. You got the notification. Typically, he doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Like, not everybody's getting the notification.
The lizard people's brainwaves were temporarily turned off, so your signal was able to get through to notify you. That's how that works.
And then somebody was asking about like why YouTube Super Chats isn't working. I looked it up. The reason why is because we're almost monetized for YouTube. Not quite, but we're getting there with the watch hours. So I think we're at like 2,400 watch hours. You guys are phenomenal. I love every one of you guys
that's really
tunes
awesome.
In. Once we hit 3,000, then I think that button will start popping up, and the people who on YouTube want to support, they can do it that way. But for right now, the only way you can really do super chats is in that top right corner that we've listed.
And that's an incredible thing that people have spent that much time watching the videos.
Dude, we've grown fast.
It's very cool. And there's even more cool stuff coming. This is going to be a very exciting year. We're going to be meeting with people and doing man on the street stuff outside of the show. We'll be going on other people's shows in person, also virtually. We're doing a whole lot. And it's because of you guys, because of how you pushed the show to grow, that we're able to make that happen.
Yeah. Dude, when we first started this, you know, I was thinking like, okay, yeah, we're doing this.
You didn't know what to expect.
I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if people were going to like us. I didn't know. I remember I was worrying about whether we would have chemistry on camera.
Right.
And all
I said, we just need to do it. That's what I said. So it's a two-way street, right? Because I've brought things to the show that have elevated the show. Tim's really brought things that have elevated the show. And we've come together to produce this finished result. So step number one, thing that I help with is just breaking the barrier and getting in here and being confident about it. Cause like we're both, we like each other. We're good guys. We're good talkers. We like to talk about these things and debate and discuss them. And we don't agree on everything, which is really the final ingredient to make the magic of it all work.
It ain't no
right?
circle jerk over
It's no circle jerk. It's a real like intense discussion a lot of the time.
100%,
right?
dude.
And the other part of making that work is elevating the graphics, elevating the show, getting a producer, making the shorts, making the channels, doing all the technical stuff. I cannot take credit for any of it. I'm playing Fortnite. Tim has been doing a phenomenal job.
I appreciate
and
that.
Like the art style, everything, Tim would come to me and he'd say, like, what do you think about this? You think you cool with this? I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like the retro aesthetic where it's kind of vaporwave, but also kind of like dystopian future where it's the old TV. I love it. So it's an interesting thing to see a show develop its own art style over time. And a lot of these shows, whether it's left or right, it's like generic.
Can we just quickly, since we don't have a lot going on, I want to find.
No, we're just waiting for the guy.
I want to just find one of our old videos right now. I hope you guys don't mind. Let's go back to the origin real quick. I know this is a little off brand right now, but like,
you want to go to the Osama studio?
Yeah,
Bin Laden room?
Yeah, man. Andrew, actually, can you do that? Can you go to our YouTube? And just go to like one of our like first videos.
And here's the thing, we're at like 47 episodes. We're definitely over 50 because we taped over 4.
We've taped more.
Yeah. So we're over 50.
Maybe, yeah. So if you go to our YouTube, Andrew, and you go to like videos, and then let me see where we're at here.
You can filter by oldest. You can go up there. See?
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay. If we hit oldest, that was 4 months ago.
4 months ago.
I think we pre-recorded that.
We did every one of these except for the chase, I believe.
Yeah, I think we pre-recorded this. Yeah, go to the hidden costs of Trump's tariffs. Maybe that's a good one because we weren't even going live quite yet. Yeah, he's got that. That's fine. Yeah, pull that up.
And it's how the evolution of things go. We have our first guest on. I think our first guest ever was Chase.
It was Chase. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, pull that one up.
Look at that.
Osama bin Laden.
The Osama studio. And see, we still have the blue lights. It looks good. I like that background too, but this one's much better. I will say.
Dude, guys, look at the glow up. And this is all of you guys too supporting us and encouraging us to keep going. But like, damn. Oh, you had the beard in this. Dude, there's even older ones where you didn't have the beard.
Yeah, we got it. Where are those at?
You look way younger, I swear.
Where are those at?
Let me see.
Because we did more, for sure.
Yeah, we did more for sure.
And just to remind you guys, we're about to be joined by Simon Dixon here in about 10, 15 minutes to talk all things global finance and monetary systems.
Yeah, today's going to be a little bit looser besides Simon coming in here.
We should talk about the show a little bit with the viewers after. We should continue this. This is fun.
Okay, I think it was this. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Andrew, I'm sending you this.
The hidden cost of Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, hidden cost of Trump's tariffs. Can we? Yeah, we got to play some of this.
Yeah,
I'm not even gonna lie.
Play a little bit of it.
Andrew, here
I'm wearing the same exact.
Do you have? Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I'm wearing the same exact shirt.
Look at the full circle moment, guys.
That's good.
Look at the full circle moment here. Oh, yeah. Go ahead and play a little bit of this.
Connecting from news for years and then coming back into the geopolitical situation really just like 1 or 2 years ago is when I decided to consciously start paying attention again. I've been kind of shocked and dismayed at what we've seen across the globe. And domestically here in America, we don't get the real news. We are the most propagandized people in the world. We are fed whatever our politicians want to feed us to get elected in that next election cycle. And that's what the gray area, that's what this show is all about. We're trying to give the real news to people.
Exactly. We're not trying to go to extremes. We're trying to find the gray area in between where people can actually find the truth.
That's why this show is called The Gray Area. We talk about the things in the middle, right? Things that they don't want us to consider because they want us to live in a world of extremes. Because in a world of extremes, it's easy to be scared. But if you live in reality, sure.
Now, that's old Rex. Cut to us real quick. Same shirt.
Yeah, same exact.
Dude does not look the same. That's crazy. The beard is perfect, dude.
Yeah,
the beard is perfect. He did tell me.
People ask me if I'm 40 now. It's great. It's wonderful. It's the best thing I've ever done is grow the beard. You know,
I mean, you look mature. That's what counts, man. The ladies love that.
We'll complete it with the Dr. Phil later on in the year.
Wow.
Like if I get the balls to do that. But yeah, it is crazy. And I mean, it doesn't even feel like that much time. Right?
It doesn't.
But we've spent hundreds of hours in here.
Yes, we have. And all the time that we spent having conversations on camera, off camera. Dude, sometimes you guys don't understand. It's like almost like we have like radio frequency happening where like I know what he's about to say and think, and then he knows what I'm about to say and think.
Right.
And then you kind of like get to the cadence where you just know, like, okay, like he's got something he needs to say.
And now we're not even just getting there with us. We're also getting there with Andrew. It's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Now we got the dog threatening to destroy the studio. It's okay. He barely moved the camera. It's all right. It's not that big a deal. But we're getting there to where we're not just simpatico. We're simpatico with Andrew. And that's what it's really going to take to elevate the show to the next level, because we don't even have to worry about like whether the guest integration is going to work, whether the live stream integration is going to work, whether we got to pull up X, Y, Z. It's such a big deal now. And it seems like such a simple thing to take the keyboard and mouse out of it.
Yeah, you're right.
It improves the show.
Before we used to be like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and then like just making sure we have the audio going on. So
we're not just two guys. Hey man, doing the podcast, the Gray Area Show, dude. It's a professional production with a producer.
Yeah,
and that was really your initiative, Tim. And really, like, we trust the audience. Found the best people in the audience to work with us, right?
100%. And you guys have been reaching out, and pretty much like. The people that are working with us now are viewers. That's like that's the coolest thing.
That's how we want it too. We want people that are passionate about what we're doing here.
100%.
Want to be a part of it.
And then by them investing in us, we're going to be investing in them. And it's just like I don't think you guys understand. This is that I eat, sleep, and breathe this show. I kid you not, guys. I'm thinking about the show when I'm off camera, when I wake up, before I go to sleep. I'm thinking of everything that needs to happen in order for this show to grow like it needs to, but also in the right way. Like I love every single one of you guys that tunes in, even the 130 people that we have.
Especially the 130. These are our most loyal people that are here right now.
100%.
Yeah, for real. But it's going to be cool. We're about to do the interview. We go ahead and get that introduction up, and I'll go ahead and give a little background. I'll read it again. I'll give kind of an overview on who our guest is. We're going to be joined by Simon Dixon. Simon Dixon, he holds numerous degrees from Kingston's University and the University of Manchester. He had a career in traditional finance and as an investment banker, and he's now a CEO of B&K to the Future. That's a regulated investment platform that's facilitated over $2.5 billion. That's billion with the B, folks, $1 billion in investments across 100 plus financial tech and blockchain companies, including early stakes in Coinbase, Kraken, and Bitfinex. I know two of those very well. Very, very big platforms. This isn't a hayseed.
No.
This is a real guy.
This is a real guy.
It's a real guy.
And I'm curious how much Bitcoin he has.
Well, I don't know if he'll tell us.
No, he won't.
He's probably just kind of smile. It was probably just kind of like smile a little bit.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was involved. He's seen everything from the 2008 crisis. Did you read that part?
Yeah. Well, I didn't. You can go ahead and go.
Yeah. After leaving traditional finance in 2006, ahead of the 2008 crisis, his personal experiences with financial instability, including a dot-com crash, eroded his father's pension and pushed Simon towards monetary reform and Bitcoin advocacy. So
very interesting. So he's someone that not only supports Bitcoin from, like it works perspective, he supports it from the moral perspective of like, he sees this as the right way to go for the,
he was one of those people that like was giving speeches about Bitcoin when Bitcoin wasn't cool.
Right.
And people would be like, why are you having this like lecture here where you're telling us about something like crypto? And the world didn't understand it.
Right.
That's honestly how a lot of technology works, right? The people who get in early are rewarded, but it's also hard to stick with being one of those early people if you don't know it's going to work out.
Right.
There's a cost that goes along with it. But, Bitcoin, now you can't even go without having a conversation about finance in the world without mentioning Bitcoin as a prominent asset.
Right. And that's because the public has seen so many, various jumps in the price, leading from, I would say, really 2008 onward. There are various boom periods, right? Where like everyone's like, hey, do you own it? Because it just went up.
Yeah.
It just went up like 30%.
Well, now it's in a bear cycle. And I'm glad you didn't buy that Bitcoin like we talked about, because I was like, it's not done going down.
Right.
Because he called me one time. He was like, I'm thinking about it. I think it was at like 95 or something like that.
Something like that.
And
it crashed to 82.
And I was like, okay, it could go up, but realistically, looking at all the variables and what's happening, I think it goes way lower than this. And then it did a nice little bounce, and everybody's like, okay, Bitcoin's good. It's safe. And now it's at 65.
Right. And, we'll also talk to him because I know he's knowledgeable about precious metals. And it's been very interesting because silver was at like 117.
Yeah. Overvalued, though, to be honest.
And then it went. But we'll see how that develops. I ultimately, I need to learn a lot. So I'm going to keep my questions to the political adjacent and basic. I know you've got a lot of advanced things to ask him, and not just advanced in the perspective of, it's complicated or whatever. Advances in this is what'll help our audience.
Yeah. I don't normally bore you guys with financial talk and that type of jargon and stuff, but I do a lot of that stuff in the background just to try to understand how markets stuff. I used to trade Forex very heavily for years before the Brexit. You know about Brexit?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So I've seen it all. I used to be a very active trader for probably 4 or 5 years, and I was looking at charts, looking at all the things and the variables, the line graphs, stochastic, RSI, everything you could possibly think of. It's like living multiple lives. And now I'm here talking to you, which is wild.
It's interesting. I was watching the Jeffrey Epstein Bannon interview. And a lot of it, really half of it is him talking about the markets, right? Because Bannon's you were in jail because, diddle, whatever. And you were in jail during the financial crisis. And he was he owned a lot of Bear Stearns. He was heavily involved in Wall Street. And Epstein gives his analysis. And it's a little confusing. And there's a lot of debate as to whether he's just kind of a secret retard or an actual financial.
I think he capped. I think he's lying.
Well, he was making very basic points, but Bannon was like, why did it happen? Why did the 2008 financial crisis happen? And Epstein's like, look, you can't compare the economy to a machine or a car, because ultimately if a part of the car breaks, you can just go replace it and fix it. And the economy is much more like a human body in the way that you can't necessarily fix the system if one part of it breaks. And he pinned the financial crisis on Bill Clinton creating Fannie Mae and allowing people with bad credit to buy homes. So he came at it from the elitist perspective, hey, we were grifting and it was fine for us to grift. They made the grifting unsustainable.
Yeah. Well,
that was his point.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was, and it's been widely reported, and maybe I should do a deep dive on this to give you guys more context, but the main thing that broke the straw, the camel's back, was the risky bets and people buying a bunch of securities, because that was the hot commodity of people buying things. And the problem was, to your point of what you said, was they were giving loans for pretty much anything. Strippers had 4 houses.
Right.
You could, at that time, guys, you could get 0% down but on a variable rate.
Right.
And that is unheard of today. Now it's you get a fixed rate. You're not paying any less than 3 to 5%, even if you get what's called an FHA loan.
Right.
But at that time, it was the Wild West. And the problem with variable rates is, once things are good, they're great. But imagine when the Fed has to raise their rates, and then all of a sudden
everything,
your interest goes from 0% now up to 7%, and your mortgage on 4 different houses balloons. You can't afford it. So that is one of the main reasons, is the risky lending. And a lot of people the people who own the assets of that stripper who had all those houses, they were bundled into these mortgage-backed securities in which you had them saying, hey, this is grade A. This is an amazing bundle. You should buy it as an investor. And people believed it. But then it was only stuff with a good amount of good people at the top, and it was a bunch of strippers at the bottom and a bunch of other people that didn't actually have good credit. And when these people fall, the house of cards falls.
Right. And it's also OG Mickey says, also the fractional reserve banking, the idea if I have $1, I can lend 10.
Yes.
It's all that's also a huge part of the problem. Yep. It's the whole thing, you owe the bank $1,000, you're in trouble. The bank, you owe the
liquidity
bank.
crunches. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you owe the bank $50 million. It's more of a them problem than a you problem.
Right.
They got to work with you, and that's ultimately why the little guy gets squeezed and the big guy's able to profit, because even someone like Trump, who's in billions and billions of dollars in debt, all he has to do is declare bankruptcy and kind of restructure his assets, and he'll be all right.
Yep.
He can just wipe the slate clean. But you get a surgery, you can't do that. You get a prosthetic leg, you can't do that.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, the whole system of America is built for entrepreneurs and business owners. I mean, I'm doing my taxes here, and there's a lot that I have to do, but like now I'm on the other side looking, I'm like, damn, some of these rules make no sense.
Right.
But like they're in there, and if you don't use them, you're stupid. Right.
Right.
Like it sucks, but like that's how it works. But
we should talk about that more on a further deep dive.
Yeah, you're 100%. I think the thing is like it's easy for me to make that point, but then I also think about the fact that they incentivize. That's how they incentivize you to actually go and build a business that actually helps society, or go buy a house that brings housing for people, so that way the person who may not be able to afford it can actually afford rent. So like it's almost like a give and take. There's just certain things in there that, like, on the billionaire scale and the write-offs that they get, some of that stuff makes zero sense, and they've already got enough. So I'm like, wait, why do we need this rule in here for that particular circumstance?
Right. Well, it's the thing, and maybe this would be a question we ask him, is the American financial system, is it too big to fail? Will there just be permanent restructuring and stagnation and permanent kind of stagflation, or will there be a true collapse?
There'll be a true collapse. And Ray Dalio,
I think so as well.
Ray Dalio was talking about this at an economic forum that they do, and he went through all the years and years, 500 years worth of history to understand these cycles. And he was like, look, in my conclusion of all this research that I've done, all of this is predictive. And we're at this point in this cycle, and it's going to end up here.
Right. It's a lot like a volcano, right? Like volcanic soil is like the most rich soil on Earth, and it's where all the best plants grow and the exotic flowers and all of that. But for that to happen, every 100, 200 years or whatever, the volcano has to explode and kill all the vegetation and all the animals, and all those minerals have to go into the ground, and then there's new life.
Exactly.
It's that boom and bust cycle, and that's ultimately that is the socialist or communist critique of capitalism, right? Is that it inherently is an unstable system.
Yeah, and that's
prone
how,
to rise and fall.
And that's how everything works. That's literally how the S&P works. Yeah. That's how the stock market works. Anybody who's pulled their money out of the market when it was at like the bottom or like dropping, they end up regretting it, because then it goes back up and it goes past that.
They call it diamond hands is what you're supposed to have.
Diamond hands.
You're supposed to have diamond hands. You're supposed to, not break. And that was the big GameStop thing back in the day. If you remember that, have diamond hands, never sell.
What is GameStop stock at right now?
It's a good question. I had a buddy that made about 10 grand off of that during that time period.
Did he close out his position?
Yeah, he closed out his position at the top. He did really well.
Wow.
Well, that's the thing, is like a lot of people are like, this is why.
Now it makes. Did they do a? I'm wondering if they did a stock split. It says $24 right now,
right?
But I don't take that at value, because companies will create a stock split in which the stock is like broken down to where the price looks lower for people to buy in. Sorry, I'm getting into the weeds here, but I'm just very curious about this. So, some questions? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah, we got Andrew. We got the young king Andrew working in the background here, enhancing the interview. And he should be joining us pretty soon. He's got the link, right, Tim?
Yeah, I sent him the link. He's good.
Excellent.
See, they did. Okay. 11 for 10. Okay. All right. Anyways, that's just me doing my jargon. Sorry to bore you guys.
You have done well, Lord Vader. Go to the Mustafar system. Kill Viceroy Gunray and the separatist leaders.
Okay, so let's read some of these comments. A student of mine brought up Fabian socialism. Fabian socialism.
That's a whole nother topic.
Fabian socialist.
It's a whole nother topic. Shout out to you.
You already said fractional banking. What's up, OG Mickey?
He's calling us tall grays, the aliens. That's one of the terms for, like, the people that are doing the abductions. There's also the machine elves. There's also the reptilians. Yeah. Well, I'm a machine elf, and then Tim's a reptilian. That's why the show is so good, is we come together in the extra dimensional field. You're actually just on DMT right now watching us. This isn't real. This is an actual show.
Got Nimrod. We got Big Bo. Thank you guys for reposting.
Yeah, thank you and click the bell if you're subscribed on YouTube. Big deal.
We really appreciate that.
Yeah, and we know other people are live right now. Suleiman literally released a taped interview with him at the same time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was like,
so, hey, great minds think alike, right? That's what we say.
I don't know if was that a released video or was that a live?
I saw it premiere as I was going live trying to get clips ready.
Yeah, okay. But I don't think.
But so if you want more after, go check that out as well, because this is a really interesting guy, and it's really like this is the caliber of guests that I want to get, because this is a guy that would be like, oh, I want Alex Craner so bad, I want to get him on the show as well. We want people that would appear on kind of the respected broadcasts, like people like Judge Napolitano. I think this is a guy that's a lot like that.
Yeah, some based people.
Yeah, some really just wise, some sage people, some sage advice.
Hey, dude, I've been wondering how you've been doing.
Dan Bongino's Karate Moves. Doing good. We're doing good. We're just taking some recalibration time, getting ready for bigger and better shows. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up, especially in July, April, and May. It'll be very cool.
Okay. So Simon should be joining us relatively soon. But in general, the things that we're gonna really focus on here when he comes on is like it's gonna be more financial world, banking, those types of things. Like,
I want his thoughts on the crash, man, because we talk about that all the time. I want to see what he thinks about the stability of the global market and the U.S. economy and the relation between each other. I'm looking forward to that. But he should be joining us any minute now.
Nimrod Pod asks, do you think the risk of devaluing real estate assets outweighs the reward of making housing more affordable to young families? Good question. Good question.
Well, Trump said like it's a good thing the house costs more. He came out and said
no. So like, okay, the reason why housing is more unaffordable, and we did that whole breakdown, isn't necessarily the investment part, right?
Right.
That's not really what's causing it. The problem is it's a supply and demand. That's really where this all boils down to. So incentivizing people to buy houses, that's only like one small fraction of where the money is going. It's just we haven't built enough houses too. And the problem is everything's been built out. Like you go here in Austin, there's more spaces to build, but now you have to build north of Georgetown.
Right.
And further away from downtown.
And it's also, we talked about it, the people that are locked into the really low interest rate, even if they would want to move or go somewhere else or upgrade or do whatever, they're like, the 2% is pretty chill. I'm gonna stay where I'm at. And then it's also the old people owning a lot of the housing as well.
Yeah,
there's a lot of different factors.
We call those the golden handcuffs. You
right.
know? Like my grandma had a house that she passed down to my dad, and like they're not gonna change out to a new house because it doesn't make any sense. But that's another house that could be on the market. Ever since the 2008 crisis, guys, happened, the supply of houses that were being built in new construction plummeted.
Right.
And it's been trying to recover, but the recovery isn't happening as fast as actual generations of people wanting to get houses. Like right now, you've got all the millennials who are now just turning 30 and they're like thinking about housing. Also, think about this one thing. Back in the day, somebody said Nick Shirley says housing prices is cause of legal immigrations. I think I agree. I'm gonna
drop in the bucket.
I'm gonna put this up here because I agree with this.
Well, and Nick Shirley's whole job is to fearmonger.
Yeah, this is a lazy argument. That's exactly why I spent literally like 6 hours doing the research to understand what is actually causing it. And, not enough people watched that video of ours, and they got to see the Nick Shirley put out something out there for like clickbait purposes. And that's how these things go.
Right.
So people are going to are always going to be like,
well, go ahead.
They're going to be not led to the actual truth because something sounds cooler.
Well, I like the idea of Nick Shirley getting pushed everywhere. It's like, oh, he's the biggest investigative journalist ever. He exposed the Somalis, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, he ain't talking about Epstein file. That's why he's able to go to White House and stuff. He ain't talking about Epstein file. He don't talk about the war. He talks about, the Somali. I don't agree with the Somali fraud. I think that it's bad. But we have much bigger problems right now. And those problems aren't being addressed. And they throw you the slop. And then if you get mad about the slop, Oh, we're being joined by our guest.
All right, we'll give him a second to
Calibrated.
let him get calibrated and let Andrew tune him in. But yeah, let's read this intro again.
Yes.
Simon, we'll take you online in a second here. We're just gonna get you introduced and have our producer get you settled here. So go ahead, Greg.
Yes, welcome to the show. Today we're joined by Simon Dixon. Simon holds degrees from Kingston University and a master's in economics from the University of Manchester. He began his career in traditional finance as an investment banker at firms like KBC Peel Hunt and later as a market maker on the London Stock Exchange. He is now the CEO of B&K to the Future, a regulated investment platform that has facilitated over $2.5 billion in investments across 100 plus financial tech and blockchain companies, including early stakes in Coinbase, Kraken, and Bitfinex. Very big deal. After leaving traditional finance in 2006 ahead of the 2008 crisis, personal experiences with financial instability, including the dot-com crash eroding his father's pension, pushed Simon towards monetary reform and Bitcoin advocacy. You scroll down a little bit?
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Right. Welcome to the show, Simon. How are you doing today?
Awesome. That was a very formal introduction. I haven't even thought about university qualifications and stuff for a while, but thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, 100%. Man. Super glad to have you on. And you know, we've been on a lot of spaces together, and Suleiman hosting those spaces and you co-hosting. And I just hear a ton of conversations, and I was like, man, I need to have this guy on our show. Like, just very
a real expert.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, look, I spent 25 years of my life following money. It's all I do, whether it's working in the swamp and investment banking, managed to escape it, whether it's, building businesses, selling businesses and investing. And now I'm just trying to exit the whole damn thing. The whole thing is one ginormous, corrupt mess. And I think we're all, the whole world is experiencing the evils that exist behind their money right now.
Yes.
And you know better than a lot of people. You know, you've been in this industry for a very long time, and we want to get into a lot of that stuff. But for people who don't know you, kind of take us through like your journey, because it's been a long journey, man, in your career, and how has all those things shaped, you know, where you are today as well as your career that you're pursuing now.
Yeah, sure. So I guess for me, it started really 25 years ago when my father, it was the dot-com boom and bust, 2000. And my father was born in 1933. So he lived through the Great Depression, World War II, was sat under tables in a little town called Bristol while England was being bombed, and was the son of a bus driver with the seventh son of the seventh son. So a bus driver's salary was able to support 7 people back in the day during World War II. But then after World War II, we entered into this dollar standard that was outlined by Bretton Woods.
Yes.
And he kind of made himself, he got to £1 million from nothing by hustling. And for him, that was like the ultimate achievement. And he ended up putting it all in the stock market. And while right in the middle of his retirement, he got on the wrong side of the dot-com boom and bust and just lost it all. And so he saw everything he worked for his whole life, just disappear. And one day it was, he asked me, son, like, where's my money? What happened to the money? Who's got the money? I had the money and now it's gone. And he had no idea what happened. So ever since then, I kind of, tried to learn by going to college. So I did up to a master's in economics and realized they don't teach you how money works or where the money went. You mathematically prove a pile of stuff based upon incorrect assumptions. And then you realize you've been indoctrinated into working for a central banker, right, and not figuring out how the system actually works. So it's like a sausage factory to try and get you in the bank. And so after that, I started my career as, I didn't go to the right university, so I didn't get into the investment banks right away, but I managed to get a job. The institution that my father lost all his money in was a stock brokerage called TD Waterhouse. And because I lived in Manchester at the time, I noticed that TD Waterhouse was based in Manchester in England. So I knocked on the door and they gave me a job as a T-boy. And so I wanted to find out from the inside what happened to my father's money. And so I started working as a T-boy, and after a while, they promoted me to become a junior stockbroker. And then once I was a stockbroker, I realized that, right, we're just glorified salespeople, like selling stocks, you know, like the Wolf of Wall Street kind of thing. And I started to understand how a little bit of these compromise networks go, like we're seeing with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, you're meant to go out and you're meant to, you know, the higher you want to go, the more compromised you have to start being, the more degenerate you have to go. And so I managed to get myself a job as a market maker in the city of London. So now I'm right in the middle of the swamp.
Financial capital. Yeah.
Yeah, right in the financial capital. You know, and figured out how stocks really move. And, you know, would take the call from Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs would place the order. And then the media would cover the story, get everyone on the wrong side of the trade. You, as a market maker, would manipulate the price of those stocks and shares. And everyone's on the wrong side of the real money that's moving the market. And so after doing that for a few years, I wanted to find out what they call the other side of the Chinese wall. So in investment banks, you have like the people moving markets, and then you have the people doing the deals. And so I switched over to corporate finance, which is where you're doing all this M&A activity, and you're putting together deals, and you're trying to make people public, you know, make companies public, sorry. And got a bit of experience around how, you know, all deals are understood, massive insider trading, and really how deals are constructed. You know, when you're looking at these war zones at the moment, you know, an investment banker just sees that as an opportunity to pitch. Let's, you know, take that country out, like what you're seeing in Gaza, take it all down and rebuild better. And if we're going to make 10x the returns off the rebuild, you know, we got to make sure that the military companies have a new war zone to go to. So kind of learn like the ruthless brutality behind these investment concepts in investment banking. And after a while, you know, you're working 100 hours a week, and I tried to figure out still how money works on the other side of it. So I had to learn economics from scratch by reading books like Michael Rowbotham, The Grip of Death. And then I stumbled upon a documentary that was considered a conspiracy theory at the time by Bill Steele called The Money Masters. And this is when I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense how money works, and decided that I'm just going to throw in the corporate towel. This is 2006 now. And this is right before the financial crisis. And I decided that I would go across a bunch of colleges and universities where they were really the sausage factory for building the investment bankers and the central bankers. And I would teach them how banking works. And I got across this roadshow. I went to London School of Economics, Birkbeck University, University College of London, went across to Chicago, did 200 different universities in a year to teach the students how money actually works and how this whole thing, the monetary system works. And, you know, you'd get very few people, but then suddenly the whole system blew up. In 2007, you get the subprime crisis, and my lectures were suddenly attended by like 300 people, 400 people, 500 people that really wanted to figure out how the system works. And I was still very ignorant at the time, thinking that I could change the system. And so I started turning my attention to politics, and I presented, you know, there was like Sir John Vickers was doing the Commission on Banking on what went wrong. It turned out that they weren't going to fix anything. Presented at House of Parliament, House of Lords, various other things. Met Boris Johnson, like all these different politicians. and thought that I could persuade the Senate Banking Committee in order to recognize how scammy banking is and maybe reform it. After a while, I realized nothing's going to change here. This is the very same people that own the governments are the same banks that set the policy. So the whole government's co-opted into this system. So then I decided, what else can I do? So I tried to create my own bank. And so I took all of our savings and I managed to recruit a team. And we put together a team of people that built the only bank that had launched in 100 years.
Wow.
And it was this bank called Metro Bank. Metro Bank basically managed to get a banking license, direct clearing license. And it was the first one for 100 years with the Bank of England. Recruited the team, spent all my money on it, and managed to get a meeting at the Bank of England. We got all the systems built, all the technology built. And we wanted to do the model differently. What we wanted to do is have a non-fractional reserve bank. And that meant that people would just deposit their money, and people could allocate their money to what they wanted rather than us deciding for them. And we would just hold it all in custody. And we didn't want to rehypothecate or create loans with their deposits. So I presented that model to the Bank of England. And I still remember this meeting. This was around about 2009 at this point. They said, well, the first thing is you need to do is to pursue this application further. I need you to deposit $60 million at the Bank of England to show that you're serious.
Wow.
And then, and then I need you to rebuild this technology on top of Barclays Bank or one of the other clearing banks. And you can have it where you have full reserves, but they're going to have the deposit and they'll do fractional reserves. And so they said, so you've got to assume the cost, use their technology, put 60 million at the Bank of England and give all your money to them to rehypothecate and just build a Ponzi scheme on top of their Ponzi scheme. And so, after a little bit more of that, I realized it's impossible to create a bank. And there was a problem. I burst through all my savings at this time, and I was completely broke and I had a mortgage to pay. I was in the debt cycle. At the time, it was a really big number for me, but I was about £250,000 in debt. So I tried to find some venture capitalists. And when I would pitch the business to some venture capitalists, they'd say, yeah, sure, but we need you to change the model. We want you to build a fractional reserve bank. And we want you to do it this way. And so then I realized, oh, right. So when you get the funding for your business, you work for the venture capitalist. And now everything's about working on their mission and their vision. And so I realized, wow, finance is actually just a mechanism for control.
Right.
And so all of these different lessons kind of come into what we'll probably talk about. So I'm just building it up a bit.
It's a lot. It's pretty heavy history there.
And honestly, it just goes to show, like, I was like, okay, I know this guy knows a lot, but like, you know a lot. Like,
yeah, you can always tell when you talk to people.
You had a question for him, right?
Yeah, I don't want to deviate too far because that was like the perfect intro. That's probably the best intro a guest has ever given to the first question. But obviously, you understand the dollar very, very well. And being someone that's from the UK, when you look at America and you look at our system, how much longer do we have left, do you think? And I know that's kind of a broad question, but there's this feeling that people have here, especially younger people, I'd say people under the age of like 45, where you can kind of feel a scratching on the wall of reality.
Yeah.
And there's kind of two schools of thought. People are like, things are going to gradually get worse and it is what it is. And that's just how it's going to be for the next decade plus. There's other camp, which we're kind of a part of. We think a crash is coming. What do you think about that?
I think it's the slow depression. What you're witnessing in America right now is kind of what happened to England before World War I. There was a monetary reordering. There was a slow transition. The government was completely bankrupted. And then they managed the transition to the next world order, which was the Federal Reserve System.
Right. That
required World War I, a Great Depression, and World War II to get through. And then at the end of it, all of the gold ended up in America in Fort Knox. All the gold from Russia, through the Bolshevik Revolution, ended up in Fort Knox, or a chunk of it, all the Nazi Germany gold, and then they created the CIA with the Jewish mob and the Italian mafia.
Right.
Then you had, all of the British Empire, mercantile colonialism, that was restructured into the Federal Reserve. And then through the wars, 75% of the world's gold ended up in building the military-industrial complex and the Bretton Woods system. So you're at that stage right now. The financial-industrial complex is what I call it. They are managing a asset stripping exercise of leaving all the debt on the people and taking all the assets over to the stock market. And so what Trump administration is doing right now is rolling over the debt at an ever faster rate in order to pump all of that money via the big beautiful bill and debt ceilings into the US stock market. And in a K-shaped economy where there's only two types of people, those deep in debt and those that own the assets. And the number of people that own the assets is getting smaller and smaller, tighter group. So 95% of the stock market is owned by 10% of Americans, and $65 trillion is owned by foreign investors. Now, they've bought the government, the Senate, and the Congress, and so the financial industrial complex is the major lobby. And so all of the politicians now need to pitch to their bankers on, give me money to be a politician, and they prostitute it at every debt ceiling in order to corruptly allocate the money. And then they're thinking about, what do we do with the American people? Well, we build a police and surveillance state. So that's why the Trump administration has introduced, headed up by Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and David Sachs, the technical industrial complex that is going to integrate stable coins into, into social credit scores and Palantir surveillance technology,
biometrics, all of it. Yeah, that's all key, and that's something that we see here, and we're really trying to resist. My addendum to the question I asked initially: both Biden and Trump weaponized the global financial system. Biden weaponized the SWIFT system against Russia, and then Trump with the blanket 500% tariffs on anyone I decide. If I wake up at night and have a bad dream, you're getting 500%. How much did that further the degradation of what we're seeing? How much time did that take off the clock, do you think? Do you think that was significant?
Yeah, so look, there's several events. If you look back, so like post World War II, there was very little debt. Then you needed to escalate the Cold War and pretend that it was capitalism versus communism, while Wall Street was funding both sides.
Yep.
That was all created from the Bank for International Settlements. The governor of the Federal Reserve, his brother was also the governor of the Reichsbank that funded the Nazi movement. Yep. The Bank for International Settlements took.
Yep.
Yeah, Hitler invaded a country. He would call up the bank.
Gold. Then they took the gold from all of the Baltic states and areas around Russia. In Czechoslovakia was one of them. They gave all of that gold that Hitler robbed, and the IMF just allowed it to just funnel into Hitler's pockets. Basically, they allowed those transactions to happen.
Yeah, you got it. The IMF was created 44 after World War II, but prior to the IMF, it was the Bank for International Settlement.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
So, yeah. And so every time Hitler would invade a new country, he would essentially call up the Reichsbank. The Reichsbank would call up the Bank for International Settlements and say, hey, you know that gold that had like the Czechoslovakia label on it? Can you call up the Federal Reserve and the Bank of England and put a new sticker on it and call it Germany's? And so then you had a scenario where essentially the British government was claiming that they were fighting Nazism, while the Bank of England was storing the gold and funding the Nazi regime. That's really explains everything. While simultaneously propping up the Soviet Union in Russia and creating fake capitalism in America with the Federal Reserve System.
Right.
Which was a debt-based Ponzi scheme. If you haven't figured out, the dollar is debt. So when people talk about we got to pay down the debt, what you're asking for is to eliminate all dollars. And if you eliminate all dollars, you get the Great Depression again. And so the debt can't be repaid because the Federal Reserve System means that the shareholders of the Federal Reserve, which is the private banks, they get to create dollars, but they don't just get to create dollars willy-nilly. They have to persuade someone to borrow those dollars. And so if you come to the bank and you say, I'd like a mortgage to buy this real estate, they then say, great. And so they deposit the dollars, which is a digital currency, into your bank account. But they say, we'll own the real estate. And as long as you pay the interest, then at the end of it, if you pay the whole loan, you can own it. And so they take possession of the real estate. You think it's yours, but you enter into a new debt contract. But the problem is that the dollars that were created need to be repaid plus interest.
Yep.
But the plus interest doesn't exist. So you've created dollars for the loan, but there's no interest. So the only way to pay the interest is to go out and find someone else to create more debt. And so you end up in a Ponzi scheme.
A scam.
Where individuals have to take on the debt, companies have to take on the debt. The closer the company is to the money printer, they get the 0%. The poorer you are, if you're taking on credit cards, payday loans, you get the 40% or the 20%. And then obviously the Federal Reserve System is designed when the Ponzi scheme breaks, you basically put the burden on the government, you socialize the losses onto the American people, and you privatize the gains onto the bank. Until eventually the bank owns everything and you're on the monopoly board, and the person that was able to issue the money owns all of the assets.
Wow.
Ain't that nice? Isn't that friendly? They do that?
I think the worst part about it too is like, you know, for people who actually pay attention to the macro level economics, you just see that like the entire system relies on trust the same way fiat currency is something that exists and didn't exist prior to 71 when we came off the gold standard, right? But like at this point, anybody who's gone into these positions of power understand that like it's a runaway train and there's not really any stopping it.
That's why
That's why no one wants to be the first one to break the system. So they just kick the can down the road. And then now you see like people like Trump come in, put pressure on Powell to lower interest rates. And he's like, well, I'm going to replace you anyways. But not understanding that if the average person actually looks at, they're like, oh, lower interest rates, right? That's great. That's great. No, that's good for the people who invest. Like I talk to this about my business partner all the time. He's like, yeah, I'm excited that that interest rates are going to go down. I was like, yeah, that's good for us. But like the average person, it's going to hit them with inflation. It's going to be the same situation to where now we've normalized 3% interest. You know, it used to never be that way. And we can't even explain why 2% was normalized as inflation, you know?
Yeah, there's a couple of other elements to it that make it even worse, if that's not bad enough. What they then do is they decided that they would take all of those mortgages, package them all up into a security. The investment bank would package them up. And then they would basically create these mortgage-backed securities. But who ended up buying those mortgage-backed securities?
Investors.
Well, what they did is they made it where you contribute to your pension every month and you pay insurance premiums every month. And you give it over to an asset manager to manage all the investment for you. And so they created the money. They owned the real estate. They then created a Ponzi scheme where more debt has to continue, charge you the inflation, and then used your pension to become the most powerful asset manager in the world to buy the real estate so that you've got the risk. And then when they pass the risk on, if they mess it up even further, they can use your asset as leverage, create derivatives, and crash the price of your asset so that they can then accumulate it through their hedge funds. And so they really cornered the market. And then what do they do with their profits? They buy the government, the lobby. And so, you know, and so they use your pension, they create your money, they create the inflation. And you know what's even worse about the interest rates? Well, it's actually, if you look at the market right now, when they put the interest rates down, who are they doing that for?
They're doing
what they're actually doing it for is for the short-term bonds, the short-term government debt.
Exactly.
Now, as the market gets more stressed, the long-term bondholders, which own the country, which is almost all foreign owned. So the government works for the bondholders, and these bondholders are, the other countries in the world, and the bondholders rule. And effectively, what they're doing is they're saying, no. If you want to get like 0% interest over there, we want 6%, 7%. And so the 10-year bonds, their interest rate's going up as the short-term interest rate goes down. Now, when you're pricing a mortgage, you're pricing a 10 to 30-year contract.
Yep.
You're not pricing it off the short-term bills, which is the lower interest rate. You're pricing it off the 10, 20, and 30-year. You're offsetting it with the 10, 30-year bonds. They're paying higher interest rates. So as the interest rate goes down, your mortgage, auto loans, and credit cards, they go up.
Yeah.
And the only reason they're doing it, and then what are they going to do with the short term? What are they going to do with the short-term bills? Well, they're reforming the pension system so that they can dump it on the American people, because all the foreign central banks that are members of the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of central banks, they're all selling. And they're taking their treasuries and they're selling them and buying gold, which is devaluing the dollar further.
Yes.
And now everyone's going into hard gold while the Trump administration dumps it. And then what do? They create new innovation and say, hey, guess what? We're going to be the crypto capital of the world. And we're going to actually create a new dollar called a stable coin. Yep. It's going to be programmatic. It's going to be a social credit score. It's going to be integrated with artificial intelligence. And it's going to have a superficially low interest rate that you're going to subsidize.
Yeah. And that's also where you get to hide some of the debt, because, I mean, part of the reason why they want to lower the interest rate is so that we have to pay less money on the debt that we owe on these bonds, right? But then at the same time, if you create a stable coin and you get people to buy the stable coin around the world, then you get to offload some of that debt that we are running into. But the problem is no one trusts us now.
No.
That's the worst part about this equation. I was like, what, Trump, he's only gone after 3 years. Okay, fine, let it be. But then I'm like, wait, no, I mean, he's already got the ball rolling down the road where now you've got Canada and some of these other countries getting in bed with our quote unquote enemies, right?
Everyone's always our enemy. We have to destroy them totally. We can't work with anybody. They're always most evil. Yeah. But go ahead.
And even the UK is pretending to be like best buddies with us. They really don't like us right now either. Everybody is secretly against what's really happening on the macro level scene.
And the U.S. is against the formation of the multipolar world, which we would argue has already happened. It's already here.
Yeah. Here's what's really important. I think the bit that people still believe is that the politicians are in charge. And Trump's really bad for that, because he does have, right, so, the top of the chain is this financial industrial complex, transnational capital. Some people think it's Europe. It's actually, if you look at the Bank for International Settlements, it's the central bank of central banks. And the largest shareholder is based upon your GDP as a country. Yep. So the largest shareholder is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is owned by the banks. Those banks are public on the US stock market. And the largest shareholder in those is the asset managers, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. And so at the very top, think about BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. The technology that they created is used by the Federal Reserve. They own the banks as a primary shareholder via your pension and your money of all the 20,000 corporations. They also, during COVID, they used BlackRock's technology to manage fiscal policy. So they own the Treasury, they own fiscal policy, they own monetary policy, they own the Fed, they own the banks, they own 20,000 different corporations. They get board seats on all of them. So when you're an executive at a company, you work for the board. The board works for the shareholders. The shareholders is pulled together capital. They own the media because the media is public companies as well. They own the shares in the military-industrial complex. Under the military-industrial complex is the deep state. The deep state is CIA, Mossad, MI6. And so those asset managers essentially have the ability to portfolio manage the major changes in the world. Now, just because they're hosted in America, it doesn't mean they're nationalistic. They're not nationalistic, because who does this financial industrial complex and the asset managers and BlackRock co-invest with? All of the sovereign wealth funds. The largest sovereign wealth fund is hosted in Norway, and then you have the Gulf states, and then you have China. And so transnational capital is effectively the American hosted financial industrial complex that partners on every deal with the sovereign wealth funds. That is effectively, where do the sovereign wealth funds get all this money from? They get it because China's manufacturing everything and buying all the energy. And so the countries that held their energy and essentially managed to maintain independence through a sovereign wealth fund, they are able to negotiate with the largest asset managers and reset the world order. So why are we moving to multipolarity? Because the financial industrial complex is moving the world to multipolarity. And Trump works for the financial industrial complex. He doesn't work for the people. And so there's no America first, there's no UK first. It's why, if you look at UK, Keir Starmer just works for the military industrial complex. He might as well work for Larry Fink, Lockheed Martin, and General Dynamic. His job is just to send money over to Zelensky. Zelensky then sends it back to the US military companies. It pumps up the stock market. It creates a GDP, and it's funded via the Pentagon budget, which is Americans taking on the debt. So all they're doing is they're asset stripping, and they're running very sophisticated operations, including tariffs. Tariffs reset the world order. It's very convenient because you get a MAGA narrative. You make it like, yeah, we're bringing back the manufacturing base. We're going to make America great again. But really, all you're doing is you're resetting all the relationships towards China, towards multipolarity. And every deal you're doing is you're taking foreign capital. So when Trump announced we've got $18 trillion of investment, what is foreign direct investment? What was the IMF created for in the first place? It was to weaken currencies, asset strip, and then transnational capital would acquire all the assets. Wow. So transnational capital is acquiring all these AI assets, all these data centers. And when they acquire, it means they get the returns and they dictate policy. And so they're going to say, NVIDIA, you give me your chips and you build the data centers in the Middle East because we want to have a part of the ecosystem and we got the energy. And so the multipolar world, there is no resistance against it. It's being ushered in by the power of America with transnational capital in China.
That was one of the most high level, perhaps the most high level thing we've ever had a guest or us, frankly, say on the show, because you break it down in a way that makes total sense. You look at Trump and it's like, wow, to us, he's doing a horrible job, but he's actually doing a phenomenal job at ushering in this new system. And that's what I've heard people on Judge Napolitano or Dialogue Works talk about. I've heard Pepe Escobar talk about this a lot. It's like, why would you do all these things? These things are the exact opposite of what your platform is, quote unquote. But this is the program.
Yeah, and part of it is, you know, when we see him say these crazy, ridiculous stuff, it's like he's not talking to you and I on the camera. He's talking to the people behind the scenes watching him and signaling to those people how to please them, right? Because that is, I mean, he's part of it. There's no 100%. Doubt about it. Now, question for you, Simon, like, do you see, like when you went into this whole thing and you learned how all of this worked, like what is the most shocking aspect to you that like most people just get wrong all the time? And you're like, damn, I wish they just knew better. Like, what is that one thing?
Yeah, several things. Number one is corporate capture. The West is owned by corporations.
Yes.
And governments work for corporations. Once you can figure that out, you can figure out that your vote doesn't matter. That everything is a theater. That there's different flavors of the same uni party. That no politician is more powerful than the systemic nature of it. The reason for that is because once you can recognize that, you realize that countries are just nodes in this network. And so right now, the latest flavor is that Israel rules the world. And that is a deliberate narrative because Israel works for the US military industrial complex with plausible deniability so that you can blame everything on Israel because Israel is just an illegal jurisdiction for testing genocide as a service by Palantir, occupation as a service by Palantir, some of the illegal technologies, illegal drug testing. It's a laboratory. So Palestine is a laboratory for all the illegal stuff that the military mafia, it is a mafia, that mafia, is do. And then so if you look around the world, you've got Palantir's integration into drones in Ukraine, which wasn't a war between Russia and Ukraine. It was a cooperation between Russia and the financial industrial complex to split Ukraine up into Russia-owned territory and BlackRock-owned territory.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to interject there. It's something that I always like to touch on. It's so outrageous that it's always talk of peace and people need to work together, X, Y, Z. This is why the Ukraine conflict isn't over. Trump's he's always like, they're killing a lot of people and I don't like it. That's what he says over and over and over.
If I was in there, I'd end it in one day.
Exactly. But then you have Steve Witkoff, you have Jared Kushner. Oh, you have Larry Fink, and they go and meet with Zelensky and to divide up the corpse. Right. So it's just out there in your face.
Yeah. And all those are mob members, Trump's background. If you look at his background, before Jeffrey Epstein, there was Charles Kushner. Charles Kushner was part of a blackmail op by Roy Cohn. Before Roy Cohn, it was Meyer Lansky. And he obviously made his money in New York. New York is owned by the mob. The mob consists of a Jewish mob, a legacy Italian mob. And when I say these things, by the way, I'm not talking about all Jews. I'm talking about a Jewish mob, like an Italian mob. It doesn't mean all Italians are in the mob.
Every group's involved in organized crime, for sure.
Exactly. There you go. His daughter was married into the Kushner family, Jared Kushner. And who's this Jared Kushner guy? Why is he at all the meetings when he doesn't work for the government? What did they say about him in the Epstein files? Well, we learned a bunch about that. And we can dig deeper into that. But if you look at Steve Witkoff, if you look at Howard Lutnick, if you look at all these people surrounding Trump, these are mob people. They became billionaires by hanging around. And here's the shocking thing. The shocking thing which the world is coming to terms with right now, first thing is that countries are just assets of corporate interest. The other part is that, jurisdictions like Israel are just subsets of corporate interests, like military interest and testing. Everyone's a useful idiot. Like, religious narrative is just, how do you recruit an army called the IDF? Well, you say they need to protect the Jews. You radicalize via 9/11 the Christians in America to make them think that these wars are about something else rather than resource extraction. And then you create and fund proxies like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which were actually Western-funded proxies to destabilize the region. And then you say it's the Muslims. And then you use those in order to create militia armies. Like, read a book called Operation Gladio by Paul Williams.
Oh, yes.
Covert regime change. You can see all these ops. And so you radicalize in order to recruit armies. And it's all religions. And that's what these different centers are for, to recruit for the mafia, essentially. And then we figure out, well, people ask a question, and I was very blessed by Bitcoin, and I'll get back to the origin story when we cover Bitcoin and everything that's happening with Epstein now as well. But once you make $1 billion, people ask, why do you need more? Why do you need 10 billion? Why do you need 100 billion? Surely you just walk away. Well, the reason is because in order to get to be a billionaire, most people needed introductions. They needed access to various networks. And the world is run by a cartel of blackmail operations. and compromise operations. And so the higher you go up, someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who's a node in the network, his job is to take multi-century contact networks and glue them all together by saying, if you want to get to this level and you want that introduction, then I need to have a picture of you sleeping with a 14-year-old.
You're gonna have to barbecue,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even forced. It's like, there's dishonest compromise, and then there's a bunch of people that are willing to do that anyway. And right. So what we're seeing with the Jeffrey Epstein files is that they're purging a bunch of assets right now. And those assets are revealing how this compromised network works. Why are they doing that? You'll notice that this really discredits the US system while Trump is being an agent of chaos. At the same time, there's only one central bank in the world that's raising interest rates. That's Japan. They're breaking the hedge funds Japan carry trade. They're raging ideological fake war on Europe, pretending that Europe and America are enemies, when all they're doing is they're sucking up the euro dollars and breaking the euro dollar system. Simultaneously, the DXY, which is a basket of foreign currencies priced in dollars, is slowly going down. That breaks all the dollar pegs with every country that pegged to the dollar. And then what do they have to do? They have to sell their treasuries or sell their gold in order to protect the peg. They ain't selling their gold, so they're selling their treasuries. Simultaneously, a country like Saudi Arabia that has the petrodollar, they're saying, we compete with America. America's got all that oil, and they're trying to export it all. So who's our customer? Our customer is China. China's buying all our oil. And so they gradually break the petrodollar. And then you strategically do what exactly happened when Britain had to transfer. You have a slow growth, a transfer of assets, and the strategic weakening of the dollar so it becomes a regional currency rather than a global currency. And that coincided with the release of the Epstein files so that everyone says, I don't want to be a part of any of this. Now remember, taking on the deep state, what does that mean? The deep state propped up the dollar. The crimes against humanity you're witnessing was what created the demand for the dollar in the first place. Right. Covert wars, National Endowment of Democracy, United Nations, USAID, drug trafficking, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, drug cartels, deep state. That's what propped up the dollar. So by taking it on, you get the perfect narrative. We're going to make our country great again. We're focused on nationalism. And we can usher in the surveillance state by focusing on border control and a hot topic like immigration. While really, what are you doing? He works for the financial industrial complex, and the financial industrial complex is managing and hedging its bets. And so where are they going to do that? Dismantle United Nations and do it via the border peace. Trump gets to get rich. He gets to build his Trump towers in the Middle East. He creates stable coins that manages corrupt deal flow. Again, this if it were Biden, I'd be having the same conversation about Biden. Don't take this as Trump derangement syndrome.
Same thing in Ukraine.
I know you have a point, Tim. I just want to say, like this is the heralding in of the new system. And when you look at it from the perspective of Trump not being someone that actually wars against these things, but as someone that's ushering it all in, I mean, this sounds a lot like my new political ideology. You know, it's congruent. It makes sense. It's not a circular argument.
Yeah, and the thing that I'm very curious, because you touched on the Epstein stuff, and I heard in that conversation where it was you and then it was Grant Cardone's brother Gary, and you guys were talking about Epstein, and I was asking Gary about like the things that you have to do, or what do you need to do in order to like climb those levels, or like what are you sacrificing without being in that. And you mentioned something about Bitcoin and the things that people have tried to get you to go to, and talk a little bit about the selling of your soul and that system that goes on behind the scenes, because not a lot of people understand that. I mean, they do, but they don't actually know what it's like or experienced or have been invited to those things.
Yeah, so let's get back to the origin story. If you look at my career in investment banking, like I left when I realized what I'd have to do in order to climb the ladder. And you have to be involved in degeneracy. You have to go to parties, and the parties, the higher the party you get invited to, the worse it gets. And if you want to get to executive, then you're doing some seriously effed up stuff, or you don't get there. Nobody in power gets there unless you do it. You know, there is very few wild cards make it.
Yep.
The only wild cards that make it are the ones that don't need access to capital, because that's what I learned in my business journey. That I went through a very unique experience. So after realizing I couldn't create a bank and I was stuck in debt, I happened to be invited by somebody that appeared in the Epstein files, a guy called Amir Taki, in order to speak at the first Bitcoin conference in the world in 2011. It was in Prague. There was one in New York, and then there was one in Prague. And the price of Bitcoin crashed to from $30 to $3 at that conference. That was a 90% crash. So I've seen all the different crashes. The point that I wanted to bring on this is that I learned in investment banking what you need to do to succeed. And then my journey started again in the business side. Now, fortunately, something very strange happened here. I bought my first Bitcoin at $3. I was deep in debt. We took our last bit of credit card debt and we flew over to Prague. My wife persuaded me to do it. Like, I was very fortunate in that sense. And I actually launched this book, Bank to the Future, Protect Your Future Before Governments Go Bust. You don't have to buy it, by the way. I'm not pitching it. You can get a free copy on simondixon.com.
Wow.
But that was the first published book in the world to include Bitcoin, and it was launched at the first Bitcoin conference. Because Bitcoin went from $3 to about $300 around about that time, I was completely financially independent, and we took the bank that couldn't get the banking license, and we changed the company, because at the Bitcoin conference, there was a company called BitPay that was pitching for funding, and BitPay had created like the PayPal of Bitcoin. They made it easy for businesses to accept Bitcoin payments. This is 2011, 2 years into Bitcoin. Because the price of Bitcoin went from $3 to $300, I started investing, and Max Kaiser and myself invested in this company, BitPay. And as the price of Bitcoin went up, we started investing more, and we were earning, and I transformed the company into, I sold it to Coinbase, so I'm not pitching my company anymore. I'm very independent. I'm not connected to any companies anymore. We started allowing other Bitcoiners to invest in early Bitcoin companies. And because we earned revenue in Bitcoin and the price of Bitcoin kept going up, we didn't take any venture capital funding. But all venture capitalists were coming at us to try and, around about 2013 onwards. And because we had enough Bitcoin, we said, well, what am I going to do with your venture capital? And I realized, I started to learn as I became an investor, the reason that you're investing, one of the big reasons you're investing is control. And so as an investor, you take control of the company and the direction. And the more you invest, the more access and control you get.
The cardinal reason. Yeah, for sure.
And this is how Silicon Valley becomes the first rung on the compromise network. And this is why Jeffrey Epstein wanted to infiltrate Silicon Valley and technology. Now, Amir Taki invited me to that conference. And if you look at the Epstein files, in 2011, Jeffrey Epstein was trying to figure out who's the who of Bitcoin. And there were emails where he was introduced to Amir Taki. And Amir Taki was, at that time, I remember it very well, he was a bit angry with Bitcoin because Bitcoin's pseudonymous, it's not anonymous, which means they don't know who makes the transactions, but every transaction is public on a blockchain. And he wanted to create a private version of it.
Yep.
And that private version was called Darkcoin. And he created a wallet called Dark Wallet. And he invited, basically Jeffrey Epstein to, I think, invest in this project. I can't be fully sure. Amir Taki responded to the Epstein files, so you can go and have a look at it. But this is when Jeffrey Epstein started trying to infiltrate the Bitcoin network. And what did they do? Well, he created a mechanism for trying to get into all the funding rounds. And this is when I realized I went on this. So I invested in over 100 companies, from Coinbase to Kraken to Bitstamp to Bitfinex to Bitcoin payments in Africa, BitPesa, Uno Coin in India, Bitso in Mexico, AirTM in Venezuela, Argentina. I just wanted to support the entire ecosystem, and ended up just investing as much. But as my journey progressed, the VCs came in around 2013, 2014, 2015, and then they started scaling it up. But as more and more companies started getting VC funding, I kind of got purged from being able to invest because the VCs owned the game. And they would create contracts where the company could only take their capital. And their capital started being seeded by these Jeffrey Epstein networks.
Right.
And so people think these Silicon Valley people are like major mega billionaires. No, they borrow the money and they compromise in the network, and they run highly leveraged funds to become, they get closer to the money printer. And the closer you become to the money printer, the more you get to leverage, and the more you get to use your money in order to leverage and gain more influence. And then you get more compromised up the network until suddenly you're someone like Peter Thiel, who's fully compromised in this network and ushering in the surveillance state. And that's how I learned through experience. Now, what made me... There were several parts in the journey. Firstly, we didn't take Silicon Valley money because we had Bitcoin. Then, at a certain point, we realized many of our companies started going public. Like Coinbase went public at like $100 billion valuation, various other things. But once you go public, you're completely owned. Completely owned.
Right.
And then what do? Is they create a derivative complex around your share price. And then you're in the game that I was in, market making and corporate finance. And so it goes full circle. Now, if you're not complicit with the network, they crash your share price. And then at the very, very highest level, they use credit rating agencies. Remember, during the global financial crisis, all those mortgage-backed securities had A+, A+, A+. Oh. Because credit rating agencies are just a mechanism for enforcing compliance. You get the higher credit rating agency, which gives you access to the cheaper credit as long as you comply with the network. And then you're in the index funds. Once you're in the index funds, all of that pension money goes into your company. And then they control the media, and they use media narratives in order to make sure that your narrative is fed out there to pump up the share price. So then you work for the bondholders, the debt capital markets, the equity capital markets, and you don't have freedom of speech because you have fiduciary duties to do what's right by your shareholders.
Damn.
What we end up in a game where all of the executives look like the richest people in the world, but they get to borrow against their stock. And so take Elon. He gets to buy X. Why did he get to buy X? Because the banks allowed him to borrow against his Tesla stock, and they can use derivatives in order to knock him off the network or knock him up the network. And all of these executives are actually pundits for power. They're not free. The richest man in the world is the most leveraged person in the world.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to clarify too on the topic of leverage, a lot of people don't realize though, when you have a company as big as like a Tesla or SpaceX, or let's say even Uber, let's say Uber or even Snapchat, like you're talking about fintech or Silicon Valley, their cash burn is super heavy. So they need that outside investment in order to even run the company. And a lot of those companies weren't even profitable for a very long time.
Yes.
So it didn't matter as long as they saw revenue coming in, and that's where you get valuations, and that's where you have like people being like, well, your company's super successful, but it's on the backs of those investors who have to continuously put in cash. And the people who started the company have no choice but to continue to run with the train. Otherwise, the entire thing collapses. So there's that leverage, that cash burn.
Exactly. Sam Altman right now, like literally
OpenAI
building out the, if he doesn't comply right now, the Trump administration is regime changing the Federal Reserve because the private credit markets that were funding these data centers seized up. And so he's putting in a new Federal Reserve chair that's on the Epstein files.
Yes.
In order to make sure that those rates go down so that they can open up the credit market. Now, what is the credit market? Private credit is a bunch of private people, but you think it's private people. They're borrowing from the banks. And the banks are socializing the losses, privatized. It's just rolling over the Ponzi. And so you get these ever more elaborate ways of rolling over the Ponzi scheme, and people clip it more and more and more until finally the end game is when you can't sell a bond. Once you sell a bond, that's it. And so why are they dumping all of the bonds on the American people? Because eventually it won't be useful collateral. You'll have to have gold as collateral. And right now, the rest of the world is using gold as collateral, and America's using their bonds as collateral.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sounds like to me, and I'm much more of a layman in finance than you or Tim. Tim's a very educated guy when it comes to this. I'm someone that's trying to learn more. But from a geopolitical perspective, from a local politic perspective, what it sounds like is you're describing the club. Because we always hear this, there's a big club and you ain't in it. And you talk about the different rungs on the ladder of how you get into the club and how Silicon Valley is introductory and you're ultimately just trying to get closer to that money printer. That is everything. That's not just politics. That's not just finance. That's how the world works.
Yes.
And you talked about it earlier a little bit where you have these competing teams. We call them sports teams a lot. It's what are you, red or blue? Are you Crip or blood? Are you Democrat or Republican? That's what it is in America. It really all is just a house of cards.
Yeah. Politics is a pay-to-play system. And so if you've got a lot of money, you can buy a politician. It's prostitution. And it's a competing game. So what is the American system? It guarantees, and by American system, I mean anybody that subscribes. So America, after the British Empire created the model, after the Dutch Empire, we then got the Federal Reserve in America and then built the same system. But, and then ever since the Federal Reserve, the debt has got to 38 trillion. And then if you want to include consumer debt, derivatives and everything else, you're probably at 600 trillion, something like that. The club, as it were, is you get to buy politics is a pay-to-play system in anyone structured this way. A debt-based Ponzi scheme is a fiat currency, a central bank that rolls over the Ponzi scheme for the banks, and a political system that is owned by its lobbies. And then you create a series of games where no one can deviate. One is a compromise operation. Jeffrey Epstein's an example of it that you can very easily see now. The other is you create a series of games. So if you're an executive, you have to report your accounts every 3 months. So you are playing a 3-month game. And that 3-month game determines whether the financial industrial complex will knock you up the network or down the network.
Yep.
And whether you get access to the capital. And so you can't think long term. You can only think to the next earnings cycle. And they roll over these executives because remember, the shareholders control the game. They have a board and the executives work for the board. They can change the board and they can change the executives. And so you have a 3-month game at the corporate level, guarantees short-term thinking, which is why a company like BlackRock can say, hey, here's a good way to make money. Let's increase the Pentagon budget from $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion, and let's escalate an operation to continue the war in Europe. That's profit, that's GDP, that's stock market growth in this measure.
Okay.
Now, the government, they're playing a 4-year or 2-year game. So Trump is an interesting one because he does have a little bit of leverage. That's why, Biden was just your normal neocon. Like, he works for military power, Zionist power, usual type of thing. Escalate the war, prop up the stock market. Trump is way more aligned with the financial industrial complex than the military industrial complex. But the military industrial complex has the deep state, which means that when there's normally finance and military are on par, but there's a rising technical industrial complex, there's a legacy military industrial complex, and then there's a financial industrial complex that controls access to capital. These are the different factions. So if you look at Trump, what was his campaign financing? Number one was Elon. That's a node in the technical industrial complex. Number two was the Mellon banking family, which is a node in the financial industrial complex. And number three was Mariam Edelstein, which is a node in Israel stroke military industrial complex. And so that's his order, if you think about it. Finance for technical first, finance second, military third. There's crossover. Sometimes they're all aligned. But in this transition to a multipolar world, the military still wants to prop up the dollar with war and be the world reserve currency. But due to a rising power called China, you've now got the sovereign wealth funds that work with the financial industrial complex that now have leverage over the military industrial complex. And so the military is saying, right, we can no longer run these forever wars because China has said the Middle East needs to have peace. And so now that China normalized between Iran and Saudi Arabia and effectively said Israel can't be used by the military to destabilize the region, we've got to purge all of these different proxies and create peace in the Middle East. Now, Trump, as the existing empire, is managing how does America look strong while it shrinks to a regional power?
Managed decline. Yes.
Yeah, managed decline. And so he gets to say, all right, I'll be the border peace guy. So they get to negotiate all the deals. And then we manage a transition via the border peace, and I get to take credit for it. And then I get my Nobel Peace Prize and various other things. Meanwhile, I'm stripping all the assets over to the sovereign wealth funds and transnational capital. And I'm running the economy hot. So essentially, the market just becomes GDP and stock market. That does not factor in wealth inequality. It doesn't factor it in at all. And so you've got the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer. It's a K-shaped economy. Nothing stops this train. The debt has to be rolled over. You can't pay down the debt. And he has 2 years and a few government shutdowns in between, where every government shutdown and every midterm election, he needs to go back to his donors, and they all then get to say, all right, well, I'll give this amount of money to my prostitute, and therefore he wants this. And then it's like an auction of what do you do for corporate power?
Yes.
And so then you get access to all the Congress, the Senate, and then they say, yeah, we'll make this case go away. We'll get the deep state to take on that judge, and then your court case go away. We won't quite assassinate you. The lawfare goes, and you just negotiate with power, and that's the club.
So I have a question for you, because you're hitting the nail on the head of like things that people want to know, and specifically with our audience, they wanted to ask you this specifically. With all of these situations, and you're talking about the failing of the financial system and all the fact of like the K-shaped economy, everyone's feeling that in real time. But the question is, from your experience, what can the average person do in order to actually escape or potentially beat that system? Or how do they become financially independent so that's possible? It just seems impossible for the average person these days.
Yes.
Yeah, great question. So once you understand how the system works, you then can learn the rules of monopoly. And the rules of monopoly is that you have to own the assets or you end up in debt. And that's it. And so then you ask yourself, what assets? And so then you say, well, that's just a game for the rich. No, that's very disempowering. it's not a game for the rich. The rich have massive advantages, but you have to actually put together a 10-year plan for yourself. And that 10-year plan, I had to do that. I had to make a decision when I was deep in debt. Am I going to buy Bitcoin or am I going to pay my debt? I had to make that decision. And I'm not saying this is the right decision for you because it comes with consequences. It affects your FICO score, it all this thing. But I decided to stop paying my debt and acquire assets. And then every month I just bought more assets. And initially it was like $10, then it was $100. And the only way to beat this game is to be an asset holder. It's the only way. Because the whole economy is to pump up the assets. And now then you need to really learn what assets. Well, where are we going through? The other thing to recognize is that people are waiting for some crazy collapse. And black swan events do happen, and I'm sure we'll get one. But they're not that frequent. They happen like every 10 years. And that's not what, they'll win those games because they've got they'll capture the whole thing. But what they want to do is manage a slow transition from turning everyone into an asset, i.e. you own debt, to the wealth being transferred to the asset holder. And so when you're changing an empire, the British Empire to the American Empire, the average Brit wouldn't notice. They couldn't tell. They couldn't tell the difference. I don't think we get a world. Am I still live?
Okay.
Yeah, you're up with us. You're all good.
We're listening.
Okay. No, I had a little pop-up for some reason. I don't know what that was. But the average person just saw his life get worse and worse slowly and couldn't figure out really what was happening. Now, the good thing is, I don't think we're getting World War III. I think transnational capital has negotiated that no one's going to win from World War III. So they're just resetting the world to multipolarity.
This is what Tim thinks. This is Tim's opinion too. It's a good opinion, I think. After the context you've given, I'm starting to agree. Go ahead.
Yeah. It doesn't mean they don't want war zones. Military needs to make up for lost profits. I think Europe's going to be worse. America's going to have internal civil unrest, I think, is the goal. Middle East is going to have peace, and China's going to rise. The America will continue to be a very important stock market and bond market and capital market, and it will be the regional power. The entire Western Hemisphere is going to be owned by the US stock market. That's its region. And so I think we've avoided World War III by all of these world powers and transnational capital negotiating, but they definitely want parts of the place to be in violence. So the fall of an empire is the rise of capital. So it won't happen. I'm not predicting this crazy stock market crash and sudden event when you realize the transition's happening. It's just going to be more of what we see right now. Standard of living just gets worse and worse and worse if you're in debt, and it gets better and better if you've got assets, and fewer people have those assets, and more and more people are the debt.
And here's what I'll add to that, because I 100% agree with everything you've just said there. And for myself, I had that conversation some years ago where I was like, okay, damn, like I can sit here and complain because 2025, we're here now, but like things sucked even 10 years ago. Like people were still complaining about the same things they're complaining about today. So like I made that same decision like you did. And I said, all right, look, assets may be expensive and I may not be able to afford it right now, but what can I do to actually achieve that? One thing that fixed my equation was everybody thinks that they have to be a solo entrepreneur investor. Do you know what the Jewish people do? Do you know what Indians do? Do you know what a lot of these other communities do? They invest together as a unit where people have co-founders, they have co-investors for a particular reason. Rich people do this all the time. You don't just bring your money into the equation. Let's say you want to buy a house. I don't buy the house by myself. Let's say I bring $10,000 or $15,000 to the equation. My other buddy brings $15,000 to the equation, and another person brings $15,000 to the equation.
Economic cooperation.
Because we're patient enough to realize well, we don't really need to benefit from this right now. We just need this to carry over into the other assets to allow us to all benefit. It's a waiting and patient game. And the problem is a lot of people are, I wouldn't call them selfish or greedy, but a lot of people aren't patient enough
desperate
to do that.
I would use the word desperate, because the second anyone gets a hold of any money here in America, it's like, oh, I got to spend this now. I'm never going to get any money again.
Yeah. And the second part to that equation of what I had to do was find people to be around that were smarter than me at first, to where I could learn of what they're doing that I'm not doing right. Because everything from you becoming wealthy and staying where you're at is an information gap. It's a knowledge gap, 100%. There's nothing that you did that was like, that person did that was like super special, and they're not any smarter than you. It was a knowledge gap. And if you're finding the people that know that knowledge just like yourself, you are a knowledgeable person, and a lot of people have learned from you just by being around you, right? So it's those things, as well as sometimes you got to make sacrifices. When I was in college, I was working like 2 jobs to stack as much as I could in order to actually make my first investment on something. There is a sacrifice to be made, and it has to give somewhere. So that's my 2 cents, but I agree with everything that you've been saying this far.
I mean, this has been an incredibly powerful interview, man. We get good guests. We always say we got the best guests. You are someone where I'm going to have to look at your entire body of work and study it. This is the type of analysis that I want to be able to bring, because it's not, there's levels to the slop, right? You have the political slop, and you have the geopolitical slop, and it's just narratives and conflict and breaking news and XYZ. And I've kind of gotten drawn into that. But you very clearly are able to lay out a decade over decade over decades long plan to really do all of this. And it's not left or right. It's not any of these interests. It's the people that, like you say, they hold the assets, they control the world.
Yeah, there's so much that was covered there. Let's dive into it. And I agree with everything that was said. So first thing, media is simply propaganda. Like, it's fully corporate captured. And so you just got to look at who owns that media. And whenever you read a headline, you're like, okay, that's what Israel wants me to believe. That's what Britain wants me to believe. And that's how to look at media. None of it is true. It may be true, it may not be true, but start with it, it's not true. That's what somebody wants me to believe. And so the headline is designed to distract you from how the world really works. You talked about this not being an entrepreneur and investor. So from my experience, I started as somebody that worked, and then I ended up self-employed doing a conference business, kind of a conference business where it was just me selling myself and getting speaking gigs. And then I built a business and realized that that's all about not getting paid and paying others.
Right.
And then eventually, after 10 years, if you make every decision right and you sell your soul to capital, then you might get to play the compromise game and become really, really rich. I had a bit of a strange story because of the Bitcoin side. It kind of freed me from all of that compromise game. But in the end, you become an investor and you realize that the riskiest share you'll ever own is your own business. Now, for some people, I don't regret any of that, because I think your education is bigger in business than anything else. The thing about business is you have to become an expert in HR, human relations, marketing, sales, finance, product, like everything. So anyone that starts a business and fails or succeeds, it's the biggest education, because you've got to do everything. And nowadays with AI, it's something people should like. It's a different game, a completely different game.
You can learn anything.
Knowledge gap is getting smaller, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so you go through that journey, but what if I had gone back and said, what I did right is I became an investor while I was an entrepreneur, because the business sometimes will be the riskiest investment you'll ever make, and it won't succeed and you'll end up bankrupt. But for years, I never paid myself a salary. Whereas if I just actually paid myself a salary rather than my staff, and I had invested that money as I was getting that salary, and I was spending less than I earned and invested the difference, this journey would have been a lot easier because it was very hard. Eventually I got there during that whole thing.
Yeah.
But the key thing is, and another thing I really want to say, you are being pushed to be a trader and a gambler right now. That is the agenda. Poly market, shitcoinery, crypto, prediction markets.
All legalized and approved overnight, ready for the American public. We watched that happen. It was crazy. When we were kids, gambling was illegal.
That was a bad
You cannot do it.
Unless you go to Vegas.
And then, boom, 20 teens starts happening. And now, literally, everyone's a gambling addict in the United States, whether that's sports betting, whether that's risky, like shit coins, I guess we'd call them, the trading of those, all of that stuff.
Yeah. They want you to be a gambler because they make money from leverage, and the more trading fees you give them, the richer they get.
Right.
Now, what is really annoying to them is slow, patient investors that own their own capital, and that they try and get you to own your assets with them, and so everybody should be an investor. Now, investing, as opposed to trading, requires you to have a 10-year plan. And a 10-year plan looks really, really slow in the beginning, which is that you spend less than you earn and you invest the difference. And if you're doing something with something like Bitcoin, you need to be spending less than you earn and invest the difference and buy Bitcoin every month, regardless of what the price is.
Cost averaging in. That's exactly what I encourage people to do all the time, no matter what the market. $5 a day, $10 a day, put it in the market.
Yeah.
It's an index fund, whether it's Bitcoin, ETFs, whatever, something that's going to continue to go up like those assets, just cost averaging.
Correct. And so just keep buying it. Own more assets this month than last month, whether it's $10, $100, whatever. Your numbers will start going up as you succeed. But start today. You need to own more assets this month than last month. And you're going to learn a lot about the markets, and you're going to pick an asset and you're going to get it wrong and you're going to lose money. But your job is to accumulate more assets this month than last month. Don't worry about, learn everything about markets, but don't become a trader. Your job is not to pick the bottom and pick the top and use leverage and try and make it faster. That's a losing game. That's the game that I was taught as a stockbroker and a market maker. And 99% of people lose money in that, and 1% ends up with Goldman Sachs that controls the market.
Yeah, I was a retail trader for like 5 years. It's not a game that people want to play. You've got to have thick skin and understand how those markets work. And the stress is just not worth it for people who have, I was just single and I could do it. But for people, a lot of people watching, they have kids, they have family, they have things that require their attention, and not going into being a trader, like Simon says, is the key to it.
This is fascinating to me. So I'm a merchant at heart. For the past 5 years, I've been supplement e-commerce. I've been warehousing. I do things where I deal with physical goods and either shipping them out for people at a rate or selling them myself and shipping them out for myself at a rate. The thing that I'm gleaning from this conversation is I know nothing. And I'm seriously, you've inspired me to do a ton of research. And like you said, to own more assets this month than I did last month. I'm going to take that as golden advice. Thank you for that.
So then you get in the next conversation, which is which assets. Now that's a hard part. And there's different degrees of how I'd say this. Firstly, all stock markets are going up because markets are being manipulated. So even foreign stock markets, like shit countries like the UK, which is an absolute shithole right now, the stock market is outperforming the S&P right now because they're doing capital outflows. Mm-hmm. And so they're managing the market to continually go up until the sale of the last bond. But they're also doing capital outflow and hedging money into other markets, emerging markets. And so you have to look at the world today in multipolarity. And either you're going to say, all right, well, Asia's going to rise, Middle East is going to rise, Africa might rise, there's different risk profiles there. America's going to be all the stock market, and then you have to kind of make decisions, or you end up just going into some kind of index. But in a multipolar world, if you're in the US, I think get outside a US-centric view of the world. I do think the US stock market will continue to be pumped for as long as they can. But transnational capital is managing capital outflows while making sure the stock market is pumped for as long as a debt can be rolled over. And so you think about that. And then you think about, well, right now, the dollar as a world reserve asset is no longer the major asset. It's now gold. And so treasuries are only 40% of global world reserve assets. It was 70%. That's a major change. The American GDP it was 60%, now it's 25% of world GDP. And so you gotta think yourself, if they're managing a transition, real estate, again, like I can't give you generals and financial advice, but
right,
they're going to pump the market to make sure real estate continues to go up. And they're going to make sure the stock market continues to go up for as long as they can within America. Obviously, there's local knowledge, expertise that I don't have that you got to factor in to that equation. But in a multipolar world, what are central banks doing right now? Well, they're all buying gold. And they all know what's happening in the market. Yes, it's volatile. Yes, you buying on dips and all that type of stuff.
Silver too.
But central banks are buying gold. They're printing fiat currency and buying gold. They don't want dollar-denominated assets. They want gold. AI, robotics, technology, solar energy, all of the major thing that's going to power AI and robotics, they want commodities. They need components, and so they're buying all of those commodities at the moment. We got the craziness in silver, various other things. What is the gold and silver story eventually? The gold and silver story is that the gold and silver doesn't exist, and there's a bunch of derivatives for gold and silver that doesn't exist.
Yep.
Eventually, that becomes a problem, just like the dollars that don't exist in the banking system. And so the Bitcoin story, while it's underperformed the market, is a self-custody story. Because right now, people are trying to take custody of their gold and they can't get their gold. So they have a gold IOU. They're benefiting from the price appreciation, but they don't have any gold. And somebody doesn't have the gold. Somebody doesn't have the silver. And somebody was on the wrong side of the silver trade, and it was probably a bank dumping it on your pension. Because in the middle of this, they went from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. A bank went bust, and there was massive bailouts that were happening without even talking about it at the Federal Reserve level. Somebody's on the wrong side of this trade. And what did they do during the financial crisis? The banks were fine. They acquired all of the distressed assets, and they passed the liability onto those hedge funds. And those hedge funds and mortgage-backed securities were owned by your pension. And so they passed it over to you. They probably just did the same thing on the wrong side of this silver trade. And so in this world, you want the actual asset you can hold. And right now, you can probably only, at scale, can you really hold your gold? Can you really hold your silver? No, you probably just have a gold IOU or a silver IOU. Now, I really think that gold and silver have further to go, and the commodity play has a lot further to go because it's geopolitical. But at some point, this becomes a self-custody story. And the only asset that I know of that has a fixed supply, money you can own and money you can spend, is Bitcoin. Everything else is a psyop that was created by Silicon Valley. Stable coins are Jeffrey Epstein operations by Brock Pierce that sold it to Bitfinex and all sorts of stuff. We can go into that. But everything in crypto is a psyop to usher in the surveillance state and make Silicon Valley richer to supplement their poor returns by launching new fiat currencies. And so Bitcoin's the only thing where money you can own, money you can spend, and money that has a fixed supply. And you can self-custody it and take it wherever you go, wherever you want. Now, why are they trying to make out that Jeffrey Epstein created Bitcoin right now? Why did Howard Lutnick go around and get everyone to put their Bitcoin into treasury companies? Why did Michael Saylor scoop up 650,000 Bitcoin into a Wall Street vehicle and load it up with debt? Because they want your Bitcoin and they want you to put it in custody. Why did they take Coinbase public after receiving Jeffrey Epstein funding? Because they're trying to steal your Bitcoin. And they want you, what is everyone doing right now? The price just crashed to approximately $65,000. Those are all the people that borrowed against their Bitcoin and levered up. That's now owned by Wall Street and it's not owned by you. You got the debt and they got the Bitcoin.
Yep. Wow.
That's exactly what leverage is for. It's to steal your money. It's a rigged game. Those that control the markets always win. When I was a market maker, I always won. When I was in corporate finance, I was always trying to lever you up to turn you into a product. When I worked in stockbroking, I was trying to get you on the wrong side of the trade to the ones that actually controlled the market. And when I realized that I don't want to do that anymore, I had to leave the market. And that's the game. No one's going to tell you this stuff because almost everybody is wrapped up in some form of leverage or control grid, whether they're owned by the bank, they're owned by the investment bank, they're owned by the asset manager. Everybody is owned by somebody in this game of leverage. And if you want to boycott the system, you either give more power to BlackRock, or you recognize that the boycott of the Federal Reserve is the system that exists outside the Federal Reserve, gold and Bitcoin. The boycott of BlackRock and the asset managers is owning it in self-custody rather than via an ETF. The boycott of the bank is not giving them your asset so that you can borrow against it. The boycott of the global institutions that are building the surveillance state is investing local. And the boycott of the large multinational corporations that need your subscription service to survive so that they can lever up is spending local. And the boycott of it all is doing the opposite of what they want you to do, because they want you psychologically addicted to their devices and their products, and they want you weak, and they want you addicted to drugs, vaccinated, not having children, hating women, hating men, arguing with each other, divide and conquer, believing that it's that race, that religion, that group, that Democrat, that Republican. They want us all arguing. They are shaking up the jar and they are trying to make us all usher in, because you know what they really want? They want the revolution. The solution that you think that you're fighting for is how they get the surveillance state. And
yes,
all of these operations were to lock you in your house, hating women, and Elon Musk will create some kind of robot that they want you to have sex with.
Yes.
Because they're dehumanizing right now.
We talk about that a lot on the show. We talk about the futurism and the techno-feudalism that's coming. Tim has, a more positive view on AI and innovation than I do. Ultimately, it's this thing you talk about, the stagnation and the controlled and managed decline and collapse. Ultimately, when you're living in 2040 and everything is automated away and they don't really have a need for the worker anymore, what do? Do they give people a UBI? What does the future look like in that perspective?
I think UBI ends up becoming the thing. There's only that's the only way, especially if you have access to unlimited energy, which might come at that point.
And that'll be tied to the stable coins, right? I think that's how they usher it in. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. So when a bank goes bust, you will be given an app and the terms and conditions, and you'll sign up for your CBDC or stablecoin. And within that CBDC and stablecoin, you will have to take certain actions in order to not have that, not have that money shut down. And it will be you are already on X, on Spaces, building your social credit score. And all of this data, all of this Epstein files, all of this Doge data, all of this freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach, is one big ginormous data play. Nothing stops this train. Now, you have to lean in to it. You're not going to not use AI. Like, come on.
Right.
There's only so many people that can go out in a farm. And I recommend you do, build your communities, go out, get away from cities if you can, work from home, build communities, do this. I really liked what you said about co-investment. Look out for your community, build your community. Because there's going to be a time when you really need to look out for each other. And if you haven't got the social skills, you haven't built the relationships, get to know your neighbor. And I really recommend learn how to do these things, like how to be self-sufficient as a community so that you're invincible from whatever they want to do. And yeah, do these co-investments, pool your money, get better deals, like start learning how to have your own independent supply chains and various other things. But recognize there's no perfection. I've got an iPhone and I know what happens behind that iPhone. I'm using AI and I have to use AI in order to be productive. Every day you make decisions. There's only two decisions. Is this better or is this worse? And it's never going to be perfect.
True.
It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to get. Some people will say, "All right, I'm not going to use AI." Then you're going to be screwed. Like the most productive people are going to be using AI. You just need to be consciously aware of what this thing is, and just. And at the end, I think at the end, who is the master of all planners? I don't want to preach, but I believe that there is a plan, and it is God that has that plan. And we all have to build our relationship with God in the way that we think is right, whatever truth you've come to. But we have to have faith in something because everyone's losing trust in everything. This is
true.
People are losing family values. I mean, come on, what was Jeffrey Epstein? What have we witnessed in Gaza? We're blowing up children. We're using children as weapons, like for leverage in order to climb a system. Like, we got just one job on this earth, which is to have children and look after children and look and create a better, outcome for the future. Now we've gone off the rails. When you go off the rails, it's like an elastic band. Society, it needs to come back. It needs to come back, and it's going to be really painful in that transition.
Yep.
And you need to decide, where do I want to live? The American and British Empire don't get to blow up the world. And then when it comes back to roost, nothing happens. No, right. There is justice in this world. There is a greater plan. And this is the rise of other jurisdictions. So these are times to think about, where do I want to live? What do I want to do? And what is my 10-year plan? And I'll tell you what, in the next 5 years, we'll probably see 200 years of change. So the only thing you're going to be able to do to manage this transition is have a good community around you, give content, help others, and we're going to share this journey together because I don't think I have a clue what the world looks like in 10 years.
Right. I would agree with that. But the thing that brings us all together is we all wake up and look at the sun in the morning. Like we're all here on this planet.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the times, like we've talked about on the show already with you, it's people fighting with each other. It's the crab in the bucket mentality. It's the little guys, blaming this race, this religion, this group of people, this gender for the problem. In reality, we are not each other's enemies. We all have far more in common than we do in difference. It's just that one little group at the top, and that one little group isn't necessarily one little group of people. It's just the people with the money. It's people with all the money, and they make the rules. Because you talk about a number like 600 trillion in debt, and you talk about someone that makes like $30,000 a year, that person is living in a different universe than the financial controllers. They may as well be an amoeba to them. Mm-hmm. And they don't care about the collateral damage. They don't care about millions of people dying or dealing with the fallout of the wars, the death, all the organized collapses that we see, things like COVID, in my opinion. I think that was organized and deliberately planned to happen. I think that's one of the black swan events that you talk about, and hopefully one doesn't come for quite some time. But it's hard for the average person to even grapple with these things. And it's like you say, just beginning simple, easy steps like investing and becoming more knowledgeable about the economy is really the only way out. And you have to lean into the system.
Being black pilled is not going to help you in life. That's why I come on the show and I sound so white pill sometimes, but it's really the only solution. Like,
right.
No one's going to come and save us. And so that's why I really appreciate what you just said.
Very enlightening. Very enlightening interview.
Because really. not enough people are doing what you just did right now, where you're like, look, it's really bad, but here's a solution and what you can do with that.
Right.
And we need more people that are doing that.
Yeah. Incredible interview. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
All right. Pleasure. I'll give you one more thought to
for sure.
No, go ahead.
Once you realize there's a small group at the top, like you kind of get taken in a direction that can lead you in a very hateful place. There are very deliberate psychological operations right now. You could go on X right now and you could end up in a space. And in that space, they'll tell you how every problem in the world is because of the Jews.
Oh, yeah.
And there'll be another space where they'll tell you how every single problem in the world is Qatar and the Muslims and the invaders and stuff. And you'll go to another solution and you'll find a person that is building a white nationalist uprising.
Right.
And maybe you'll end up in what they're doing is they're putting us all in boxes and galvanizing the radical in all of us. At the very top, I've been down this process. It's not all the Jews. It's not the it's literally, it's fluid. It changes. It's a ruthless game where people are backstabbing each other and blackmailing each other. And it changes. With the rise of China, that gave a lot of capital power to China. With the rise of India, you had a bunch of power in Indian power. With the rise of the Gulf countries, you had a lot of power there. And, you know, you'll be taken into this direction of thinking, all right, there's a lot of Jewish power, and there is a lot of Jewish power, but who do they really work for? You know, and you got to just be a little bit intelligent here.
For sure.
And recognize it's not one group of people, and they're taking you down environments where if you really, really believe that it's all the Jews, then they're trying to make you do what essentially happened in World War II, because that's the natural solution. They're trying to take you down. Right. So what I want to say is don't fall for these extremes. Like I've tried to study and understand power, and there are within every culture, community, religion, you will find these factions of power and degeneracy and crimes against humanity. And the easiest way to figure it out is look at the capital flows and follow the money. Yeah. And they weaponize religion. They're not, you know, of course there's demonic cults and stuff like that, but don't fall down the trap.
It's the Star Wars story, right? And like that's what we reject on this show. It's always, you know, one side is the Rebel Alliance and they're down. It's the last minute of the final round in the fight. And the other guy is a Titan destroying them. And oh, you support the little guy. We're going to back him, and it's going to be the Rocky movie, the Star Wars movie. Luke Skywalker is going to, you know, kill the Emperor and save his father. When in reality, it's all just power and control groups that fluctuate and fight with each other and stab each other in the back. And the real waking up of just the global public, not just the American public, is realizing, I guess, not in a black pill or in a white pill way, realizing we have to do what we have to do to have agency, right? We have to have actual agency. It's not enough to just whine about a system. You have to change the system from the inside. And that happens, you know, you talk about nodes and these different networks of power and control. We're all nodes and networks in the country. Right. So we have to pool together and invest together and work together and realize the big man isn't going to save us. The big man setting this all up. It's the little guy.
Yeah, the world is sovereign. The word that I'm looking for is sovereign. By owning assets, you become more sovereign over time. And by having less liabilities, you become more sovereign over time. That's what you should do as an individual. More assets, less liabilities. Same as a company and same as a country. The freest countries in the world right now have a ginormous sovereign wealth fund, and they don't have a ginormous debt.
Yep.
And they're the ones that have leverage right now. The countries that are being chewed up, they have significantly more debt and liabilities, and those liabilities make them accountable because your liability is somebody else's assets. And right now, the entire West has been sold to banks, financial institutions, and foreign sovereign wealth funds. And that's why they control the country.
Yes.
Wow. That's insane. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here, because you didn't have to. And I always enjoy the conversations with Suleiman and with you, Simon. And honestly, if you guys haven't checked out Spaces that Simon is in, he also hosts his own live shows. You can find him in the bio on the show.
What's the name of your channel? Where do we find you besides X?
Yeah, I got 3 things I do. So I give real-time analysis on X, which is where I spend most of my time, and I go up on Spaces that other people host. So at Simon Dixon Twit. Then as a discipline, I publish very geeky, very like 3 to 4 hours every week of everything that happened that week in tech, Bitcoin, macroeconomics, and geopolitics. And I take all of the different stories and then just follow the money and it's always the complete opposite of what the headline is showing. I'm very geeky like that.
You got me. I'm going to be following you intensely from now on.
Okay. I publish that on my YouTube channel, Simon Dixon, and then I try and take a 4-hour video and push it through AI and turn it into a 15-minute video. And it turns out I'm very long-winded. I just can't help it. It's just how I am. No. And so I publish those. And then I try to go on a bunch of decentralized network. And in case I get canceled, I've created an environment on simondixon.com that's on like a server that hopefully, in case I get taken off any of the networks, I can publish stuff and upload it all there.
Wow. And Simon, while I was like just doing some research and learning about you, I didn't realize how many mutual people we know. I'm very deep in the crypto space with a lot of my co-founders and the projects that they've been a part of and that they've built. So after this, I definitely want us to connect and talk more about those things, because I was looking at your LinkedIn. I was like, oh, we know those people. Oh, we know that person. Oh, we know that person. And like, I didn't realize how much of a small world it was. So I'll definitely be reaching out to you and Azad, because it's just a breath of fresh air to have conversations like this. And, and I really appreciate you just taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And as I say, information is just the most important thing right now. Like, we're overwhelmed with information, but somehow you need to filter to the information that's going to help you, because that's right now. It's look after you, look after your family, look after your community, and that's really, really important right now.
Powerful.
Well, thank you. And like we said, you guys can find. Yeah, you got to come back. We'll definitely have you back on. I'll email you and maybe sometime later we can get another conversation going, especially when we have and a lot of people of our audience are like working right now, so like there's more people that need to hear from you, man, especially with our community, that they would resonate strongly.
I don't want to make any promises now. I want to get us an hour on the afternoon War Room show. If Harrison's busy at some point, I'd love to bring you on the InfoWars platform, and I'd love to let you give people just like a 2-hour dissertation on all of this, because I learned a lot. I considered myself to be somewhat knowledgeable. Now I'm realizing there's a whole nother dimension I haven't taken into account. It's like an ant walking on paper.
And the Alex
doesn't realize the line.
Alex Jones Network and InfoWars has a lot of people that would love to hear from
we'd love to get you on there, man. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys. Look forward to the next one. Bye-bye.
Right. Take care, Simon.
Thank you. Tim hit it out of the park, man. I don't know about these guests sometimes, and then Tim tells me it's the most incredible person on earth, and then we have them on the air, and it's true. Like, as far as a knowledge base and being able to provide context and real content on it in a non-like egghead way, there aren't many people like that. That guy just broke it down.
Guys, these are conversations I like to have more than anything. Right. I just don't talk about them as much because I don't want to bore people on air. But like these are conversations that I have when I'm not on air and I'm like in meetings and I'm in business meetings with other people, because I'm fascinated about these things and I just want to collect information. Everything is a knowledge gap, and as I've found myself talking to certain people, it's just like you had your eye. It's like you had your awakening moment. You're like, damn.
That was crazy.
And that's what happens when you have those conversations, because there's information that those people know.
Yes.
And there's information that you don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, after listening to that and listening to the Epstein-Bannon piece yesterday, Epstein's a moron. He is a dumbo. That guy just broke it down and laid down the law.
100%.
Like I didn't just say that to Glaze. Like, I'm now going to be binge watching that guy's stuff, and I'm going to come back here in like a month and I'll have a brain that's literally, my skull will be too big. You know, like it's nuts, because the way he describes it is like, I'm someone that's pissed at Trump, right? And I'm like, fuck you, Trump. You lied to us. You didn't do what you said you were going to do. He's doing his job. He's transitioning us into the multipolar world while play acting like he's fighting against it.
Yeah. And if
wow.
And the way Simon explained it, it's like, if you're stupid enough to think that, like, and we were stupid enough to think this at one point,
sure.
But as you start fitting the pieces, you realize it is just one big play.
100%.
People are just playing their roles. They're acting as they should. And, you know, somebody's making an irrational decision. sometimes it's by accident, but sometimes it's literally by design.
Right.
And so, this is why I have to take breaks from X and social media, because there's not enough of this content.
Oh
out
man,
there.
well we gotta find a way to replicate this, to have this guy on more, really to learn more about what he knows, so that we can also deliver that kind of information. The thing I love about the gray area, and the thing that I've really appreciated over the time of our 50 plus episodes doing the show, is that we have grown so much as individuals from doing the show, both in our knowledge base and really just as people connecting and giving the information both to our audience and giving and taking information from our phenomenal guests that come on the show. If you've been watching the show for a little while, we were talking about this at the beginning, you know how much of an evolution we've made, right, Tim?
Yes.
Like it's really been incredible to see over this 4-month period of time, really close to getting to 5 months, but really in under half a year, I've already developed like 10 new political, economic, socioeconomic, geopolitical positions I wasn't aware of. And it's purely because we do the show not from a perspective of arrogance or knowing everything or defending a position. Oftentimes, when we defend a position, we have to reformulate because we have a discussion about it. We realize points of it are wrong.
Yeah. And if you know, I
What do you
I
think?
just realized something, and it's not like me gatekeeping or anything. I just kind of assumed that, like, there are things that people enjoy and there's things that people don't enjoy. But like, even more so than Simon in general, like, there's more people like him, by the
Right.
way, that
Yes.
have that information, as well as things that I can do in a deep dive where I can teach you guys some stuff. Because
100%.
I think at the end of the day, like, everyone's just looking for something. And if you can find anything that helps you out of life out of this show, then I feel like I've accomplished my goal in life. It's just
Yes.
to make sure that, like, I'm giving value to the marketplace, and specifically every single person that's watching tonight.
Incredible. Well, I think we hit it out of the park. I think we've got a big prepared show on Sunday. We'll get another guest. We'll do another deep dive. It's going to be incredible.
So Sunday, I've been going back and forth in my head. It's a big Super Bowl day, and we had somebody
We could do
lined
Saturday.
up. I was like, yeah, we had somebody lined up, but like, yeah, we might need to push it to Saturday.
I think people would like that
because I don't want people to like sacrifice whether or not they're going to watch the Super Bowl. It's like the one football game everybody watches, and not a lot of people are going to be like sitting there with their family around and like sitting there watching the gray area. Like, so our guest,
that would be kind of fucked.
Our guest for this Sunday, we pushed them back to the following week, and then we've also got another guest after that, the Ohio candidate for governor right
Casey
now.
Putsch.
Yeah, he's going to be on the 22nd. So we got a couple more people in our repertoire for you guys lined up. But let's talk about this. I think Saturday is probably the move, just because it's just I kind of want to watch the Super Bowl too.
It's more convenient for everybody. It'll still be the same high level, long format show that you're used to. We're just going to do it Saturday instead of Sunday. You want to close this out?
Yeah, man. If you guys got any value out of this, please just follow the show. I'm sure everybody who's here right now,
we got new people in here for sure. We don't have our usual audience. We got new folks.
If it's new folks, please just my name is right there, Truism Tim. I'm linked in whatever you're watching.
You're gonna want to follow Truism Tim on X. You're gonna want to look. Here's the thing: if you're watching this on my profile, you're probably following me. If you're not, follow me and him. But obviously, go to Truism Tim on X. Give him a follow. Once we get to like that 1,000, 2,000 range in follower count, everything changes for how you DM these people. Everything. Like it's hard to get initial motion and gravity without that. Initial viewership support base, and that's really reflected in your follower count.
100%.
So go give Truism Tim a follow on X, and if you're watching this on X, we have a YouTube and Rumble channel as well, don't we?
Yes, we do.
It's the same name?
Same name, Gray Area Talks. You guys can go find that in the bio on Gray Area Talks on X. It's going to be up there. You guys should go and definitely follow that. I got some people. Let me read a couple of comments
for
before
sure.
we get
Tim
off,
is spitting big bars, bro, from Big Blow N18. I like that guest, New Groiper. High praise from New Groiper.
Glad I decided to tune in. I was going to watch the replay, but hearing all of it live hits different. Tim is good. I appreciate you, man.
Well, see, this is your wheelhouse. We got to do more stuff like this. We just do the finance. People want to hear about it.
Yeah. I like the political commentary and stuff like that. And you ask me sometimes, you're like, did you see the latest news? I'm like, I see it, But like really what I do often is like I'm a YouTube guy. Like I'm sitting watching, I'm sitting here watching and reading up and learning about how these monetary systems work and things that I could do and investment and things like that. And assets.
It really gave me a perspective into your mindset. And I want to say this, like I respect, it's not that I didn't respect your mindset already. I respect it a lot more now, understanding that's really the underpinnings of everything. Right. And like, once you understand that, instead of like being like, this is crazy developing, I know all about the thing that's happening, but you don't know anything about why.
It's actually a big reason why I'm less reactive. You know, if you've ever noticed, I don't really spaz out on people, and like, you know, even somebody could sit here and like debate and it could get super heated, but I'm never like truly angry. It's because
mellow fellow.
It's because you know in the back of your head that argument doesn't mean shit. It's not the real thing that like is happening. And so now that you guys have watched this, you've seen somebody well more qualified and informed who's actually
he has a higher IQ
this
than both
man
of us. Yeah,
this
by far.
man, by the way, I like, it's not
So
understated.
smart.
It's not that he's just smart. He has had access to rooms that a lot of people have never been
right
to, you know, very well invested. He's literally the one. He's an investor in Coinbase.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But like, I appreciate every single one of you guys that's tuning on today. You can probably catch us here on Saturday. We'll probably do the at night, 7:30, 8 o'clock,
right,
like normal. But yeah, thank you for tuning on. And anything else? I think I'm good.
Beautiful, perfect interview. We're gonna chop it up. We'll make phenomenal. This is something where a lot of the times that we do a lot of shorts or a lot of like shorter clips that we'll upload, I think this interview, there's 3 or 4 at least like 18 to 22 minute sections where people need to see them.
100%.
So we'll put that out. We'll promote that. We'll get other people to promote it. Thank you for being here tonight on The Gray Area.
Peace, guys.
Thank you very much.
Modern life has left us out of balance. Long ago it was once said, certain remedies could grant a man the vitality of a horse. For over 6,000 years, these natural remedies have been harvested and tested by generations. Why create complex formulas when nature's roots are still in our hands? Try Primal Core. Ancient remedies for modern life.